Hello, everyone, and this is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and it's time, yes, for Lindsay Clancy versus Andrea Yates. And I know some of you are wondering, why am I using this format like an MMA fight? Because I've been watching a lot of MMA fighting recently, and I thought this actually is a good format. A championship MMA fight is 5 rounds, so I'm going to do 5 rounds. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I want people to be able to compare round by round the differences between the two women, their choices, their lifestyles, their mental states, and everything else around them, and see who would be winning those rounds. Prosecution, the defense, or would they be equal? What will they be? I'm going to tell you right now what the 5 rounds are going to be. First is I'm going to their lives up until they met their husbands. 2, their lives with their husbands, getting married, having children. 3, the setting in of issues, mental issues, going to a psychiatrist, mental hospitals, whatever. 4 will be, round 4 is going to be the day of, and 5 is going to be the aftermath. Everything that happened after that, after they got arrested, and then they got their lawyers and all that stuff that went on after the fact, which is influencing, obviously, the verdict. The verdict is going to be influenced in the Lindsay Clancy case. And of course, Andrea Yates has already been through 2 trials, found guilty on the first one. It was overturned because Park Dietz, the psychiatrist, Dr. Dietz, kind of screwed up. And he said that she watched a show that, a Law and Order show that showed a woman murdering her child, drowning them in the bathtub. And it didn't even exist. So bad screw up. So she got a second trial. And the second jury found her not guilty by reason of insanity. So this is how we're going to look at things today. All right, now, you like the format? That's good. That's good, because it's a little weird, but I thought this would be a great way to go through all the different issues. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody who's in the chat room, and I said hello to a lot of people, but everybody's rolling in now, so I'm not going to keep going with saying hello. But I do want to, before I do the show, this is a public live. I don't do them very often, but once in a while I do. But if you would like to be on my regular lives, there are patron-only lives twice a week, the case show like this on the weekend, and a hangout during the week. It's only $5 a month. You click the link below, join, and you can come to all the lives. And we have a very nice community, very peaceful, which it might not be today because it's open. But it's a really great community, and we have a lot of nice times together. And if you don't want to do that, please do subscribe to the channel. AI is kind of killing smaller channels, especially educational channels. Please subscribe, click the bell. Okay, now that I've given that speech, I want to give a second speech because I have to. I really do. The second speech is going to be on the rules of this open live to the public. Number 1 rule, the biggest rule of all. If you're going to come in here and say Patrick Clancy killed his 3 children, tossed his wife out a window, please exit now. And if I see you doing anything about that nonsense, I will block you and get you out of there, because it's Looney Tunes. All right? You cannot like Patrick Clancy. You may have an opinion about the guy, but there is zero evidence, that he killed his children. And to say that he did when he is the victim is despicable. Okay, so I want to say that. 2, the second rule here is, I want people to be aware that this is my show. This is my house. Please do not come here with a barrage of your opinion to the point where you're taking over the chat room and making it your platform. It is not your platform, and it interferes with my being able to see what everybody's saying in the chat room. I want people to be able to comment, ask me questions, and be really super nice like Kimmy, and give me a super sticker for $9.99. Thank you very much. And I just want to say I may not see them all because sometimes I can't see things like this, and I'm not very used to it, but I want to thank you. And hold on a second here. See, now it's really hard to manage the chat room by yourself. But I don't want people coming in here and taking over a chat room. I want them to be respectful of the people in the chat room. It's if you want to have a platform for saying things, your opinion, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, X, do it there. And also, another rule, don't trash me in my own house. You may not like me. You may think I'm wrong. Please go and trash me elsewhere. I give you freedom of speech. Please go. Say all the negative things you want about me, but not here, because you're supposed to be here because you actually think I might have something interesting that you might want to learn from because it's an educational channel. I'm not always right, but hey, you know, the idea is to be able to have a good discussion and not have a bunch of insanity. So that's another rule. Have I ran out of my rules? I'm not sure. Anyway, so no trashing of the husbands to it and saying they were involved in killing them. Or I will talk about the husband's participation in the marriage, but let's keep it on the down low because both of those husbands lost their children. Oh, and let me remind you, 8 children were murdered between these two women. There's no question that these two women murdered 8 children. Please have some respect. People keep forgetting that the children even existed. They did. They existed. They were lovely children. They were young children. They haven't even gone to be obnoxious teenagers yet. They were children who depended on their mother to love and care for them. And these women killed them. They lost their lives. They were 100% victims. They did not do anything to deserve what they got. And so let's remember that they are the most important victims in this whole nightmare of these both cases. And thank you very much. I'll see if I can see. I can't. Lillian just said, waited all day for this, and she sent me $10, and I can't figure out how to click on it. see, I get confused. And I also want to say thank you for Cuff You. I am here because you're the voice of reason of insanity. I said that wrong. You're the It's going well so far. It's hard to do 2 things at once. I'm here because you're the voice of reason in this case. Oh my God, thank God you say. I appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Let's see, there's one more came in here. Told Cross gave me $10. Also loving your work. Love from Scotland. Thank you very much. You have to have a sense of humor when you come to my shows because I have a very strange sense of humor. It doesn't mean I don't take what I'm talking about seriously, or that I know the horror of all of this. So I'm not one that is, I'm not disregarding the pain other people have felt, especially the families and other people who loved these people. Wow, that is amazing. Diana just sent off $50. Thank you very much. Love you, Pat. Oh, you're such amazing. That is so dang sweet. And I don't know where any of your stuff is. I'm trying to put these up on the screen, but the chat room is very hard to manage when you're the only person doing it. So these things come flying by. So I definitely appreciate it. If I don't say something to you, it's not because I don't appreciate it. It's because I can't manage it. And I think there's another one just came. Oh my goodness, another one just came in. Loretta, super chat, well deserved for the best profiler out there. Thank you, Loretta. It's so sweet. Okay, well, I want to say one more thing. What was it? I had a plan for what I was going to say, but now I can't remember what it is. So anyway, we're going to go on. I'm getting, this is an ad free. It's ad free. I turned off the ads for this. So anybody coming here doesn't have to deal with the ads. All right, let's get to it. All right. The 2 cases that I'm going to talk about, I just want to do the very short piece to begin with, just so in case you have no clue. The first case is Andrea Yates. In 2001, she's a 36-year-old Houston mother. She systematically drowned her 5 children in the family bathtub while her husband was at work. I want to give you the age of the children. Noah, 7, John, 5, Paul, 3, Luke, 2, and Mary, 6 months. Keep in mind the age of these children. They were under 7 years old. Then we have, almost 20 years later, 25 years later, not 20 years later, Lindsay Clancy, a 32-year-old. It's interesting, both these women were in their 30s when they did this. Keep that in mind. In 2023, 32-year-old Massachusetts labor and delivery nurse Lindsay Clancy strangled her 3 children systematically in the basement of the suburban Boston home after sending her husband out to pick up food so she would have some time to do this. The children's ages at the death were 5, Cora 5, Dawson 3, Callan 8 months. All right. So all of the children, both of the women's children were fairly young. Only one was really school age. The other one, school age for her, 7 years. Her oldest was 5. And they did have both a baby at the time. One is 8 months and the other one was 6 months, but not infants, as in 1 month, 2 months old. Okay, so, all right, so these are the 2 women. Now, we're going to find a lot of interesting similarities between these two women, I believe. And that's what I find absolutely fascinating, and I think is overlooked a lot of the time. And people say, well, what kind of personality did they have? What was in their brains? And I'm going to mention that right now. Okay, so I want to, hold on a second. I wanted to read this to you because, and now of course I love it when it disappears. Hold on a second. I've got to bring it back. Okay. Here we go. Where are we? Where are we? Hold on one second. Here we go. I wanted to read this to you just because I can explain it to you, but I think this is an AI version. But I think it's very clear, and it's exactly what I believe. I believe both of these women did suffer from a personality disorder. Okay? Personality disorder is not something that is chemically induced, and nobody knows why people have personality disorders. Is it chemical? Well, there's no proof it's chemical. Were they born that way? There's no proof they were born that way. Was it nurture? In other words, nature versus nurture. What is it? Were they born that way, or did they become that way, or was it a mix? I believe it is a mix. I can't prove it because there's really just no way to scientifically prove it. I believe we do have a personality when we come in. Why we have that personality, I do not know. Whether it's genetic, some people would say it's because you've lived past lives and you're rolling in. Some people say God gave you a personality. Oh, wait a minute. I remember one of the other rules. We will not have religion bashing while we're here either. Okay, do not talk about religion here and say a certain religion is bad. Just don't do that. It's again rude, and don't do it. Don't trash the husbands, and don't trash religions. Okay, I knew there was one more. So I don't know how you end up with a personality, but I always felt when my children were born, I'm like, whoa, you're a different one than the last one, and they did have different personalities. But then there's also a thing called nurture, which is those children are in an environment from the moment they're born with parents or not with parents, with people, because otherwise they would be dead. So they have to be with people. But who are those people? How are they treating the children, the little babies? What are they doing with them? And as they grow up, what are they doing with those children as they grow up? So definitely the people around children have a huge effect on how they see the world. And I think some personalities don't do well with certain things, and other personalities can breeze through the same exact things. This is why you get a family where you're like, well, I don't understand it because they were raised in the same house, but this one turned out to be a social worker and this one's a serial killer. It's like, what happened? And I actually do know a family that is basically true. And one was a absolute psychopath, and the sibling was absolutely the sweetest, nicest person ever. It was a social worker, and recognized that the sibling was a psychopath. And they were like, what the heck? We grew up in the same house. So I can't answer that, and I'm not going to try to answer that, okay? Because I just don't know how to do that. So I do want to thank very kind people again. Thank you, Hannah Pedersen. Is that DKK Denmark? Thank you very much. And one other person came in here. Diana, oh my goodness. Thank you very much, Diana. I can't figure out how to put these on the screen. Thank you. You're extremely generous. I appreciate that very much. It's an educational channel, and it certainly helps me keep here. Okay, so you come into the world with something, but how do you end up with borderline personality disorder? And I can't answer that, and I'm not going to try because nobody can figure that out. Nobody knows why you became schizophrenic, or you have that supposed bipolar stuff, or that you have a personality disorder of narcissism or psychopathy. Nobody freaking knows. So I'm not going to pretend I do. But let me read you just a real short thing on borderline personality, because I want you to keep that in mind as we look at these two women. The need for validation and praise. Individual with bipolar disorder, not bipolar, but borderline personality disorder. People with, they call it BPD, borderline personality disorder, often struggle with a fragile sense of self and heavily rely on continuous external affirmation to feel secure. The daily reality of raising infants and toddlers often offers almost zero adult praise. Instead, it is a constant stream of messy, unreciprocated demands. And this is really important because when you're talking about a narcissistic, it's a continuum. We have people like maybe at this end of the continuum, which are super healthy and very empathetic toward others and can balance out their own needs and other people's needs. And then you go up the continuum and you get people who are less empathetic toward other people and much more self-interest. And it's okay to have self-interest, but maybe it should be balanced, and you shouldn't, like, self-interest shouldn't be 70 and the other people are 30 or 90, 10. So narcissism is like that. And it goes up there towards psychopathy, which is pretty much zero empathy for anybody else. And I'm the only one that matters. But with psychopathy, they don't tend to get bent out of shape that people don't appreciate them, because people are just, to them, not even worthwhile human beings. They're just pawns on their board that they can move around, manipulate, and abuse. As I always say about psychopaths, you're either in the way, you're either useful, or you're in the way. If you're not useful, we might get rid of you. So there can be that. You sometimes have a family annihilator who will eliminate everybody simply because they're not useful anymore. Chris Watts comes to mind on that, because he just got fed up with the wife and children, wanted to go off with his honey. So his family became not so useful and in the way, so he eliminated them. I think he's way on the psychopathic side. But you get narcissism in here, and then you get borderline personality disorder, which I think has a high level of narcissism in it, but not to the point of psychopathy. And these people do want everybody to pay attention to them. They want affirmation. They want praise. They always want to have somebody say you're the good person. Okay? So everything can go fine until you got kids. And those little buggers, I mean, while you're pregnant, people go, oh, you're pregnant, isn't it cool? Then you have the baby and they're like, oh, that's a cute baby. And then after that, it's all work. And that child does not give them what I think as a mother, they smiled at me and giggled. I was thrilled. But it may not be enough for people who have borderline personality disorder. The next part, the loss of control, perfectionist tendencies. Both of these women were heavily on the perfectionism. I'll get to the different, we're going to go to round one in a minute. Mixed with perfectionist tendencies, mixed with bipolar disorder, can make the chaotic nature of multiple children feel like a permanent, agonizing threat to internal stability. When a mother cannot control her environment or receive the validation she needs to stave off emptiness, the overwhelm can manifest as severe destructive splitting. And I agree with that. It's one thing to be able to manage one kid, but by the time you're adding them in and you're already not doing good with it, for a person who has borderline personality disorder, it can be too much. And then finally, the prison mechanism. From this point of view, by the way, in case you want to know how you get AI to answer your questions correctly, you got to put in the right question. So I definitely put in information here that I wanted AI to respond to, just because I wanted to read this to you. The prison mechanism. From this viewpoint, the mother creates a mental prison where the children are perceived not just as a burden, but as active agents destroying her life, identity, and freedom, leading to desperate, aggressive act to reclaim control. So I wanted to leave that with you to start with, so you could understand how it can really be, because I think both women had this issue. Now, I'm trying to get to the bottom of your comments now. I'll take a break as we go to, I'm trying to roll up here. I do not have a moderator, so that's why it's a little difficult. Okay, here we go. Let's roll down here. Wow, a lot of comments that I've missed. Okay, goodness gracious. Wait a minute, did I already comment? Thank you, Jill. That's amazing. See, I finally found it where I can click on it, because I'm now up at the bottom. Thank you so much. But see, when I click on one of these, then the problem comes down to I can't get it off the screen because I have so many comments. See, that's where the problem comes in. Whew, thank you. This is actually true. The prosecution was cringy to watch a lot of time. I am not fond of the prosecution in the Lindsay Clancy case. I don't think they're doing a very good job. All right. I think we are all remembering the children. We don't need a reminder. I think we sometimes do need a reminder. At least some people do. All right. Now let's get to part one, round one. All right. So I just wanted to put out about borderline personality disorder, because I believe both of these women have borderline personality disorder. And I will say here, okay, I forgot to mention this. I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I am not diagnosing these women. I'm just saying my opinion is their behaviors to me represent the likelihood of borderline personality disorder. And I believe that explains a lot of their behavior. Now, could there be psychosis on top of borderline personality disorder? It could be, but I just want to point that out to begin with. All right, let's start with round one. Their lives up until they got married. Now, this to me was fascinating. Both of these women excelled in school. She was also a cheerleader, and she was a valedictorian, did extraordinarily well in school. And that's where the perfectionist thing probably comes in. Nothing wrong with, hey guys, if you did well in school, I'm not trying to put you down. That's great. But I'm just pointing this out as we go. They did school fine. Then they went on to college. They both became nurses. And nursing is interesting to me because a lot of people who need a lot of praise, who have borderline personality disorder, especially females, love to go into nursing because nursing has this interesting thing where you get validation almost constantly from parents, from family, from the patients themselves, if they're older than babies. You're getting, oh, thank you so much. You're such a great nurse. Oh my God, thank you for taking care of my loved one, blah, 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 blah. Constant like that. Now, some nurses will say, well, I ain't getting, you may need to shift off the unit you're on, But nursing is one of those things that Munchausen, women who exhibit Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which those are psychopathic things, they choose that field because of the validation they get, the attention they get, constant attention, which if you worked other jobs, you're in the back room, nobody's paying attention to you at all, or you got customers who aren't even nice to you. There's lots of jobs you can do, which, believe me, you're not going to get a lot of validation or pats on the back. But nursing is one of those. And so both of these women became nurses. Now, also interesting, she didn't marry until she was 26. Andrea didn't marry until she was 28. So these two were not little, just out of high school, married. My boyfriend didn't know what the hell I was doing. Because we're going to talk about agency here. Agency is important. Oh, thank you very much, Benny. I appreciate that. I'm happy to have you back here, Benny, by the way. Lucy Leppy was also a nurse. That is correct. So these women were not, I say, just young teens who didn't know what the heck they were doing. They were successful people who became nurses, were successful as nurses, and worked in their fields for many years before they even met their husbands. And then I think she was, and they both had apartments, so they weren't at home living with their families. They had apartments. She was living, I think, with Patrick's cousin. Oh, one more thing I want to say. If I get something wrong, it's because I'm not writing a book and I haven't spent 5,000 hours reading trial transcripts and analyzing every single thing. This is an educational channel for YouTube, so I might miss something. But on the other hand, you might think I'm wrong and you're right because you heard something on that the defense said or the prosecution said, and that may just be their, they just might be fooling you. They might have a witness who isn't telling even the truth. You may be hearing stuff from the media, from YouTubers. Doesn't mean it's accurate either. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, these two become nurses. They have apartments. So you're supposedly living with Patrick's cousin. She apparently was in the same apartment complex with Rusty, and he saw her like in the swimming pool and thought, oh, she's gorgeous. And so they hooked up and they got married. And what's interesting to me is they got pregnant very quickly. Why? And this again is a choice. We're not talking about two teenagers who don't know what birth control is. We're not talking about people who have no choices in life, never had any choices in life, like you're living in a country where women simply don't have choices. They had choices. They had agency. They chose to marry these guys, and then they chose to get pregnant. Now, my rule always has been, first of all, you shouldn't get married unless you know the person for 2 years. And then after you get married, you should wait 2 years to have a baby, to make sure you have a keeper. Is that the husband you want? Is this the father you want for your children? You should wait that 2 years. They didn't. They were like pregnant just like that. Not a brilliant idea. And they were adults. They worked in the nursing field. They knew how things work as far as families and babies and all that kind of stuff go. But they got pregnant very quickly for two different reasons. I don't know. She said she wanted a baseball team or something like that. She seemed to be the one who was pushing babies. Andrea when she hooked up with Rusty, he brought he did not. Okay, both of these women did not grow up in overly religious households. Neither did their husbands, but so as far as I can see, she was never over religious. So it's not even an issue in this case, even though when she killed her kids, she supposedly said, "Go to God." Okay, whatever. Andrea, Rusty brought, after they got married, he brought in this, he met this preacher back on the campus days, and he brought in this quite unusual, very strict, not mainstream religion to the household. And this is where I want to say be careful of, don't be trashy about people's religious beliefs. Nothing wrong with their religious beliefs. But they were fairly extreme. And the first thing was that they agreed, supposedly agreed. Now, Rusty may have been a controlling guy. I just don't know. But she quit her job and she was just becoming a wife and a mother and stay home and raise the kids. Now, I will say this. There's nothing wrong about wanting to be a stay-at-home mother and raise the kids. Now they call everybody a trad wife as if it's, oh, you're just a weirdo. I stayed home and raised my kids. Yeah, I did. And I homeschooled. And she supposedly homeschooled. I'm going to get to the homeschooling issue in a minute. I homeschooled all my kids all the way through, my 3 children. So I made that choice. I didn't kill anybody. So, but you make a choice as an adult who you marry, and if you're going to have kids, and if you're going to follow certain belief systems. You have the choice to not do that, to fight, to run away, to divorce, whatever the heck it is. So you can't take women out of it just because they're married to a guy. Oh my gosh, he controls everything. You have no choices. These were not teenage girls. These were women with agency. They knew how life worked. They had choices to make. Now, the one thing that's interesting supposedly about her is that she was depressed as a teenager and supposedly had bulimia. They say she was perfect forever and ever. So round 1, very similar, almost dead even, except for the possible depression and bulimia. In other words, she was already having some kind of mental stresses that were evident to other people. She, not so much. Okay. So, all right. So that's the first round. I'll give a tiny, okay. She gets 1 extra point on her side that the defense can use to say, hey, she was perfectly healthy. Oh, or maybe the prosecution can use. We're going to have to analyze that. But hey, she had mental issues even when she was a teen. All right, so now we go to the next part. Now they get married and they're having these children, and they're continuing to have children in spite of the fact both of them are exhausted by the kiddies. Now Lindsay, who has husband makes great money. Actually, both of the husbands were techies. They were in IT, which is an interesting thing that they both picked that too, because tech guys are, I'm not saying all you guys, but less emotional, more focused on technical things, computers and stuff. So there were similar guys. Maybe they weren't. I call a lot of these guys dolts in that they don't really see what's happening. It's happening, but they don't recognize it. They doesn't register. Now they could have personality disorders. I'm not going to get into all that because they're victims. But they went ahead and had kids, and both of them apparently have more kids than they should have had. So Lindsay over here, they made, but between the 2 of them, it's like $300,000 a year. As far as that's what I found on the internet anyway. Both their salaries are great. She continued to work on a part-time basis after her maternity leave was over. But she supposedly every time she had a child, it was tough for her. And if you have a tough time with your first kid, you might want to just not have the second and third one. But she went ahead and had the second, and then she went ahead and had the third one. And there was no religious thing going on here at all. They were just choosing to do it. Andrea Yates, supposedly they decided they wanted a very traditional life, and they were going to have babies as God willed. And there's a lot of people who do that, and it doesn't always turn out badly. And she's enjoying being a homemaker and raising her children. Everything's good. So she actually had a much she could deal with life a lot better, shall we say. They had money. She could hire a nanny. She could have quit her job and stayed home because she said she was having issues going back to her job. She could have done all that. But She was concerned about the way she looked, her figure. She was very rigid. Kids had to have schedules, sleep schedules and stuff. She had the same problem. Rigid, perfectionist, rigid, perfectionist. Both had the same issue. She just had the added, she stopped working and there was a religious issue. She didn't totally stop working, but she kept saying, it was like, no, I don't want to go back to work. Well, don't. Your husband makes a lot of money. Just don't go back stop having kids, stay home for a few years. You're a nurse. You can go back and you can always go back to nursing. It's not like some jobs where once you leave, you can't get back. Because my daughter was, in police force. She's 21 years in the police force now. She became a detective and she got her maternity leave. And if she stayed away, that kind of screwed up her whole life with the police force and pension and everything else. Nursing's not like that. So she could have gone back, but she chose, she could have stayed away, but she chose to go back and then say, it's too much work. And she had her kids in nursery school. She had a nanny when she had a lot of choices. Let's look at Andrea. She and her husband agreed to her being a stay-at-home mom with the kiddies and keep having the kiddies. And then there's this whole bit about he got this big bus. It was a Greyhound bus that was redone. And she had to live in that bus with the kids. And it was too small, too crowded. And the defense made it sound like this, that she was trapped in there. She didn't go outside. She had to homeschool all these kids. It was too much work, blah, blah, blah. She was in an RV park. There were playgrounds. There was a swimming pool. There was a lot of green air. She's in Texas. It's not the middle of the winter. She's in Texas, and it was hardly ever cold down near Houston. She could take the kids out every day, let them run around. She could sit outside at a table and chairs. Just because they had to sleep inside, this one area, doesn't mean she couldn't let the kids outside and be outside with them. And this homeschooling thing, oh my God. Oh my God, she was homeschooling. It was just too much work. Look, her oldest kid was 7. The rest of them were preschool. They didn't have to. There was not much homeschooling to do. We're not talking about calculus and chemistry. We're talking about phonics and 1 + 1 is 2. I mean, it's not that hard. And she only really had one that was even school age. Get out of here. I homeschooled 3 kids all the way through. I had a friend. She had 11 kids. She homeschooled all 11 all the way through. But we all had a sense of humor. We're like, okay, we're having popcorn for lunch. And, oh, science today? Here's a toad. It's biology. But I don't know what she was going on in her mind, that she had to be this perfect wife, this perfect mother, this perfect teacher. She could have added on all the stuff that she didn't need to add on. And the defense tried to say that she was like trapped in that bus and never got out. Nobody ever saw her. That wasn't true. Actually, people did see her at the park. She was out with the kids outside. So her life wasn't horrible, but it's different. I've been in enough countries to see people all in one room living. You have 7 people of a family just living on mats in a row. It doesn't mean you become psychotic from it. So just because she has a different lifestyle does not mean she can't function. If she can't function, it may be because she's making choices that don't work for her, not because somebody else couldn't make the same choices and be perfectly happy. So after she had, well, I'll get into the next part, but so that's where they were. And I would say in a courtroom, they're going to say she looked like she was suffering more because she had more kids and she was trapped in the home and she was living out of this bus. They could make that sound really, really bad. Although she did see her family and all that stuff. Over here, you've got a woman who basically has a silver spoon. And why is she complaining so damn much? So I think the defense says she's got a better road with the defense than she does. So far, I'm going to say the defense won 2 rounds over here and 0 over here. So, all right. Wait a minute. Pat likely got everything in divorce proceedings. I will say, Brian, you were actually, Brian NEC. I see. Okay, no. I divorced quietly after 25 years. My husband and I got divorced. We did not go to court. I probably took a bath on that, because I didn't want to go through that whole thing. So no, I did not go to court. But hey, You're going a 50-50 over here? All right, all right. Pat has a flat, a flat affect, in my opinion. I'm not sure if you're joking or not, but do I have a flat affect? Are you saying I'm a psychopath? All right, you can have that opinion. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you're joking or not. I hope so. Okay. I'm going to stop here to answer some of these lovely comments here. Pat, do you think it's possible she was jealous of the children and wanted her husband's sole focus? The problem with motive is that we actually never will really know it. Once the children come along, a lot of men think that their wives aren't paying attention to them anymore. But on the other hand, women who are very invested in trying to take care of the children feel like they're not getting the attention they want anymore. And also because your body changes, and this was definitely a Lindsay thing. She was really worried about the way her body looked. She was like a runner and all that. I don't know exactly what Andrea thought about that. But your body changes. There's no question about it. The more kids you have, you're not exactly want to pose for Playboy, So marriage is not always easy. Even if you have a good marriage, there are times when they're difficult. And adult people with good, healthy mentalities and don't have personality disorders realize that, okay, we have to work through certain things and we have to compromise and all that kind of stuff. But people with personality disorders often don't go for compromise. They often point fingers and say, it's your fault. Why? The reason I'm in this situation is because of you. In other words, I didn't put myself here. You put me here. And these children have put me here. And therefore, I'm getting overwhelmed. And interesting enough, what did they do to unoverwhelm themselves? Which is a good question. I'm going to get to that on round 3 here. Oh, when you said Pat had a, I thought you were talking about me. Pat had a flat affect. I thought you were talking about this Pat. You mean Patrick? If you're going to talk about Patrick, please put the Rick on the end of it, so I don't think you're insulting me and I block you out of the chat room. Oh my God. Okay. Again, one thing I want to point out, he did have a rather flat affect, but when you're in a court of law and you're sitting on that stand being attacked and trying to maintain your cool, just don't know if that's really him. So you have to be a little fair about that because, and you're on camera too. On top of it, you're on video. You're live to the entire freaking nation, which I think should be stopped. I do not think trial should be televised because it affects the witness's testimony. It affects everything. And I don't think that makes for a proper trial. I think it should be done privately and with decorum. And if you want to videotape, have a panel that can look at the trial later, okay. But I know everybody's like, well, we have the right to see it. I don't know that televising is your right. If you want to go there and sit in the courtroom, bully for you. But I don't think trials were never meant to be televised and have people playing to the crowd. The lawyers play to the television because they know it's being seen. They also know it's being transmitted to everybody, and that unless you have everybody sequestered, the jury sequestered, those jury members go home and they see what's out there. They get the opinions from what's out there. And the stupid concept that the judge goes, when you go home, you don't talk to your friends or your husband, and don't you watch on the internet. I'm counting on you. Pinky promise. Like, what the hell is that? That's ridiculous. I mean, a judge should know better. That is absolute garbage. But maybe the judge is forced into it because he can't get them sequestered, especially for freaking long trials. So then he has to like, don't be bad. And of course, people cannot control themselves. They will be bad, and they will get all the information that is out there into their heads that is not being presented in the courtroom. So it's a huge, massive mess. But that's a whole nother program. Pat is my psychopath. Now we're talking about me. Oh my God. Let's see. Yeah, talking about Pat Clancy. I figured that out now. Chronic insomnia. Okay, I want to talk about chronic insomnia. It can drive you crazy. Because we're talking with both of the women. Okay, so we'll get into part 3. Round 3. Personally, I think she's got 2 and she's got 0 at the moment, as far as the defense goes. Round 3, both of these women were supposedly exhausted and overwhelmed. Why? Why did they have chronic insomnia? And is the chronic insomnia from their choice? Now, the concept that insomnia, and of course, are we talking about insomnia that you can't go to sleep because you can't stop thinking? Or are we talking about you don't get enough sleep because your work schedule and you're nursing that baby and the baby's nursing all night long, so you don't get any sleep? Okay. I have nursed 2 of my 3 children. I nursed because my 3rd was adopted, so I skipped that part. I nursed for 4 years straight. And I did a family bed, so my baby was sleeping next to me. And so I could at least doze while the child was nursing. Did I have perfect sleep? No. And later on, I became a sign language interpreter on call to the hospitals 24/7. I can tell you, 13 years of my life, I don't know the meaning of a full night's sleep. 8 hours, what's that? My hours were everywhere. And I also worked TV for 15 years. Same thing, I get calls, can you do Sky News from the UK? So I'm like, okay, can you do, I was up at the early show, the Today Show, going into the studio at 4 a.m, whatever. Years of that. And I never went into psychosis. I also knew that I had the agency to determine if this was inappropriate for me. In other words, if I was unable to handle it, then another decision would have to be made. Maybe I'd have to say, I can't go back to work at the hospital because I didn't sleep the whole night before, so I'm sorry you can't find another interpreter, but I'm not returning because I haven't had any sleep. I could say that. Or I could tell TV people I don't work before such and such a time. Or I could decide if nursing was exhausting me to the point where I just couldn't get any sleep and I couldn't handle it, I'd say, okay, husband, we're going to have to go to a bottle, and guess what? Your turn. There are choices people can make. Women can make these choices. If they don't, that's their choices they have made. So these 2 women in round 3 here, had more children than they were comfortable with. They'd have the baby, and the next baby would be more overwhelming than the baby before. And the whole thing about, I'm not real fond of postpartum depression issues. I believe that they were already depressed before they had the baby. I think the baby makes it worse, because if you're already borderline personality disorder, you already need all of these things, and you want to be, and you're perfectionist, and you got to have everything, and you have to have all this praise. You're already struggling. Then you have a baby, it just makes it worse. So a lot of people, it's their situation, not the baby, but the baby does add to the situation because it's more work. Every child is more work. So if you were already struggling with the first baby, and you couldn't figure out how you're going to deal with the second, third, fourth, fifth, maybe you should stop procreating. My friend had 11. She was good through the whole 11. She was trying for 12. I wouldn't have done that. My daughter stopped at 1 because she said after the 1, she's like, look, I'm in my 30s. I had 1. My child's in great health, and but I'm a detective, and she was working homicide. She didn't have, her time was really messed up, and she was like, Mom, can you help? And then her father-in-law, and then she had to get nannies. It was a mess. And she's like, yeah. And she said, if I have a second one, Mom, will you help out? I'm like, hell no. I did it with the first one. No, I can't do it twice. And she decided not to have the second child. And my granddaughter's 12 now. She made a choice based on what her abilities were and what her situation was. And every woman and man has a different situation depending on where they are in life and what their own abilities are. Some people can handle stuff that I couldn't handle. And maybe I can handle some things that other women can't handle. We're just different people. But we, as adults, we get to make the choices of what we can handle and what we can't handle. So we have to decide where to live, what our community is, how many kids we're going to have. Are we going to work? Are we going to stay home? What about the money? I stayed home with 3 kids. I rented 3 rooms in order to be able to stay home with 3 kids. I shopped at thrift stores. That was my choice. But if, let's say I was embarrassed that my kids wore thrift store clothing. Let's say I hated having people in my house. Well, maybe I shouldn't stay home. Maybe I should go to work. Those are choices. These women had choices. And so they had more children than they apparently were comfortable handling. They noticed that they became more depressed and more overwhelmed, and they didn't stop. And then we get to the issue of going to the psychologist in this whole thing. Both of these women did go and get medical help or were forced into getting medical help. Lindsay, being a nurse and understanding postpartum depression and psychosis, because that's actually where she worked, chose not to get talk therapy. She chose only to go to doctors to get medication. One doctor after the other after the other. She didn't follow through. And she never told anybody. And by the way, in case you now think that, oh, she told her husband and her family that she was hearing voices. That's not true. That came up in the civil suit. In Patrick Clancy's civil suit, he never mentioned she had heard voices. But in the Lindsay Clancy civil suit, now suddenly she heard voices, and she told her family and Patrick. And her family went, her mother and sister went into court, and they said she heard voices, and she told us that. I'm going to say that's the defense got together and said, you want your daughter to go to prison or not? Because we have to have some proof she heard voices before she killed those kids. But she never told anybody that she heard voices. She never told anybody that she wanted to kill her kids. She never told even the suicidal thing was just a thought. So she did go check into the mental institution, psychiatric institution at one point, and they didn't see anything that was awful outside of depression. And she wanted to go home for her daughter's birthday or whatever it was. She made choices over and over again. She played the doctors. She decided what she knew about the drugs. She was doing all this kind of stuff. And some people say it's in preparation for, like she completely planned to kill her kids, and she was trying to set up with a diary and visiting that she was crazy. Essentially, she was trying to set up a crazy defense. I don't know that's entirely true. I think she was trying to, if I'm correct, and she's borderline personality disorder, I think she was definitely seriously depressed and not getting the attention she wanted. She was going to these doctors to get that attention and get drugs that she thought would make her feel better, because if you have borderline personality disorder, you don't usually know you have borderline personality disorder, or you won't admit it, so you're like, I'm normal, and therefore I don't know why I feel this way. Well, you feel that way because you're highly narcissistic, and you're not getting the attention and all that stuff you need. So that's why. And so she's doing what she thinks will help her. And then she goes online, she's checking things out. She said, checked out, about being a psychopath, because she probably realized she had some issues of narcissism, not necessarily psychopathy, but, by the time you murder your 3 children, you might be that. But, so she was leading up to this thing, and people are like, oh, Patrick didn't do enough. Well, he did have parental leave. He got to stay home. He for quite a while. He offered that she stay home longer. He offered that she don't go back to work. They got a nanny. He was actually in the house helping, so just because he's working doesn't mean he can't come upstairs, take a break and come upstairs and just help with the kid for 15 minutes. Or she has to run out to the store for something. She doesn't want to take all 3. Well, 2 of the kids are in nursery school for most of the week. So we're talking about just the baby. So it's very possible she could run out to the store and you just play with the baby while she goes to the store. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. And I don't think she had it that bad. Sorry. As far as being around with the kids, yeah, she could have made more choices. She could have had a full-time nanny if she wanted to work more. All kinds of things you can do. But she chose not to do those things, and she chose to go to doctors and ignore half of their advice, never get real talk therapy. In other words, the problem with a lot of women like these two and a lot of psychiatrists is that They want to cure things with drugs because it's easier. If you come in and they diagnose you, it's interesting. Neither one of these women was diagnosed with a personality disorder, not even considered, as far as I can see. I couldn't find any information that said that the therapist said, oh, you might have a personality disorder. Nobody says that. Why the hell not? You know why? Because you can't cure a personality disorder, but you can do something. You can give drugs for schizophrenia or for bipolar, whatever. So the new interesting enough with the postpartum psychosis, they're now basically saying, well, yeah, but most people who have postpartum psychosis are also bipolar. So in other words, it wasn't enough to have the baby, you have to have another condition to make you go psychotic. See, they keep changing all of this stuff over and over again, and coming up with these different guesses, essentially. And I'm going to go into that when we get to the last part, as far as what the defense has said. It's fascinating. But they never were looked at for personality disorders. And also, when they went in, they should have had, in my opinion, nobody should ever be given drugs without ongoing psychiatric treatment and talk therapy. In other words, when she was going, it's like, why didn't you have ongoing stuff that said, hey, Andrea, do you hate your life? Are you miserable? Do you hate watching 5 kids a day? Is your husband overbearing? Is he deciding things for you you're not happy with? Can we change this? Did anybody work with her on that? Same thing with her. Lindsay, let's talk about all your issues. What could you change to make your situation better? But they weren't getting ongoing talk therapy at all. A little bit when they were in the mental institution because, hey, they got forced into it there, but then they were released and they didn't continue. But both of these women were nurses and they knew they probably should get that kind of therapy, but they chose not to because they didn't think anything was wrong with them. They just thought, oh, it's chemical or whatever. So, and I don't think the husband just knew any better, but they didn't get what they needed because a lot of it was because I do not think a lot of the psychiatric stuff is what I would want it to be. But I also think that they didn't want it to be what they needed, they didn't get, but I don't know that they worked to get what they needed. So again, we still have some agency here. So anyway, this is how they go on and they see these different people. Neither one of them told, and except for after the murders, then all of a sudden there's these, revisionist histories developed by the defense teams that they told people they were hearing voices and that all this kind of stuff. They were not. Now, but mostly what they said about her was that she was depressed, had some thoughts of maybe hurting herself, maybe it was a very vague type of stuff, not enough for them to keep her institutionalized or to force her to be institutionalized. She never mentioned hurting children. She did go in on 2 suicide attempts. One of them was overdosing on her father's medications, which were sleeping pills. And this is also interesting. A lot of times when they call it an attempt, it can be a cry for attention more than it is an attempt. The second one, she supposedly grabbed a knife and her mother said, no, but she didn't actually do anything with it. So we don't know that she was actually going to do anything with it, or she just wanted people to know she was struggling and was miserable. I'm miserable and I just don't want to deal with anything anymore. So they take her and put her in the psychiatric institute. And they did say while she was there, she was catatonic, ripping at her hair, not talking. In other words, they didn't really say she was in psychosis, but she had psychotic kind of stuff. It's very, very vague. So in other words, she never said she was hearing voices or seeing things or hallucinating. She never said that. But she acted weird by acting, by being not wanting to talk to people, going like this and ripping her hair out. I didn't hear anything about, they sort of said schizoaffective. I think that's the term they use, maybe. But again, was she speaking in a way that schizophrenics speak, where she made no sense whatsoever and was all over the place and none of her sentences actually you couldn't understand her? I didn't see that. I saw a severely depressed person from what I've read, a severely depressed person. And she was severely depressed. There's no question about that. Might she have wanted to take her life? Maybe, because her life sucked. But I don't know that that proves psychosis. So anyway, that's kind of leading up to the day. Now they both were home. She was home with her children. She was home with her children. Her mother-in-law had been coming, mother-in-law, I think it was her mother, coming by every day, except for the time when she decided to kill the children. She sent her husband out when she decided to kill the children. So now we're to round 4. Let me check on some of your comments. This is okay. Missouri Girl says postpartum psychosis is a rare but severe psychiatric emergency characterized by abrupt onset of symptoms, typically occurring within the first 2 weeks after delivery. Okay. Again, we don't know if it's chemical, but yes, there is some validity to that. That is it's an overwhelming thing right away. Why that's being caused, we still don't know. What's interesting about this now is that postpartum psychosis, apparently, according to people now, can happen when your kid's 8 months. And like with her, she was fine for 3 months. She was fine for 3 months after the baby was born. She was doing really well. And suddenly they have psychosis. And they're like, oh, it's because of the baby. I'm like, why does the baby have anything to do with it? It's been months. I mean, they're still having chemical issues. I mean, I know that, yes, women go through different, we go through, when we have our, when back in the day when I had periods, yeah, we had that, irritation time, and then some people with menopause have issues. But I think men some have issues too. But our bodies do change as life goes on, but not to the point where you're psychotic for the most part. So it has to be some really strange stuff going on, and that it would suddenly pop up months later, and they're now saying up to 2 years. I'm like, why don't you just say 18 years until the kid goes away? You might have postpartum psychosis. This is ridiculous. And then another thing that I've heard recently is if you're nursing and you stop nursing, you can go into psychosis because suddenly your chemicals just go wackadoodle. Now, I was a Leche leader for 6 years of my life. I taught women about nursing. I helped women who had trouble with nursing. Never once in 6 years did I ever heard of anybody stopping nursing and going, I went crazy. I never heard that once, and I was on the front lines. And I tell the story because it's funny. So, I was nursing my daughter for 2 years, and I got pregnant with my son, and she was nursing, and it hurt. And I said to her, ouch. And she looked up at me and she said, Mommy, boobie hurt? And I said, yes. And she stopped nursing right then and there and never asked again. I'm like, dang it. Why didn't I think of this 6 months ago? I should have faked it. What happened when I stopped nursing? Nothing. I just didn't nurse. I didn't see any chemical changes. I mean, this stuff is, a lot of this is just supposition without proof. Because somebody's having an issue doesn't make the issue chemically related, but it can be. She said she felt bad because she had to go back to work and then she wouldn't be nursing. She thought it was a horrible thing. She was going to leave her child without. Okay, you can express your milk. You can leave that for when you're there. I mean, she wasn't working full time. She could have expressed, okay, the baby maybe not take a bottle. Okay, that happened to me with my daughter. She expressed milk, and when she went back to work, and my granddaughter would not take that dang bottle the whole time my daughter was at work. It was really not good. It was really, really hard because I walked around a lot like this because she wouldn't take the stupid bottle. She wanted the milk, but she didn't like the container. So she would wait till my daughter got home and then she'd nurse all night. And eventually my daughter had this whole freezer full of milk that she gave to the preemie unit, at the hospital. But there's options. And if your child doesn't get breast milk, so what? I mean, I prefer women breastfeed because I'm big on that. I think that's the best thing ever. Healthiest for the baby, best for mom, best for bonding. But guess what? Tons of children survive on a bottle. So there you go. Give the kid a bottle, but you're not a perfect mom if you give the kid a bottle, right? But this is in the heads of these two, where they're thinking, I have to be this perfect, perfect, perfect person, because if I'm not a perfect person, I don't get the praise. And so that becomes a problem for them. So let me go check out some of your other comments before we go to the day of. That's a good point. In fairness, she sounds like there was no pleasing her. He worked from home. She had her parents, his parents, a nanny. Probably got sick to death of her complaining. I mean, how much more can you do at a certain point? You know, yeah. I mean, it can get very, very difficult. I want to say thank you to Bruin. Oh, $5. Thank you for the super money there. Did the demonic command voice go away when she answered the phone for 14 seconds? Hang on, devil. I gotta tell him where the Pedialyte is. I like that one. Good question, though. And that's the Lindsay Clancy thing. I'll get into that in a second. Okay, here we go. While less common, postpartum psychosis can develop up to 12 weeks, 3 months postpartum, and rarely cases are reported later in the year. Again, reported doesn't mean caused by the baby and your body. It can be the simple fact that you already have mental issues. Because why do people think everybody's like, everything's perfect, and then I had a baby and all went to hell? No, when you had that baby, you bring yourself along with the baby. You're not a different person. You're just in a different situation. So the claim that it's always the baby who did it to your body is crazy. Out of onion rings. I like that. Yes, I definitely think Lindsay was making a paper trail on a medical record. She kept complaining about meds so she could get more, to claim she was over medicated. And it may be. We will never actually know that. But it's a reasonable, valid point, and I think that's what the prosecution is trying to say. That is also true. This is a great point. Believing that postpartum psychosis is real and believing that Lindsay Clancy experienced it are two different questions. Lindsay is guilty. That is also an issue. I mean, if it does exist in the rare occasions, which I'm not going to say, I do believe psychosis exists. I'm not sure always what causes a psychosis, but do I believe it exists? Yes. And just to say this for people who don't know me, I've worked in hospital situations for 13 years as a sign language interpreter. Okay, so I was in the psych unit. I was in the emergency room. I saw a lot of stuff. I saw people who were not telling the truth. I saw people who would lie to the doctors, and when the doctor walked out of the room, then they just start smiling and laughing because they fooled the doctor. But they know that I'm an interpreter, and I can't tell the doctor the truth. I can't. Why? Because it's against what's called the code of ethics. So I'm stuck. But I would see things that the doctors and nurses never saw. I'd see psychopaths manipulating and lying. And I would be in the psych unit and I could see what was going on, whether they were really schizophrenic or they were not. I have all kinds of interesting things. I remember one woman I interpreted for, we talked about schizophrenia. I was interpreting for her, and and the doctor's like, I'm interpreting and I'm talking, and the doctor's like, well, I don't understand what she's talking about. And I'm like, oh, she's not talking to you. She's talking to the guy next to you that didn't exist. She was schizophrenic. A lot of times I had difficulty interpreting for schizophrenic people because nothing they said made any sense. And sign language is not word for word, it's concept for concept. And if you can't understand the bloody concept, how the heck can you interpret what they're saying? Because you don't know what they're saying, really. But I worked in that situation, so I saw a lot of things that a lot of people did not see. Regular people in real life don't see the kind of things that I've seen, as far as Munchausen's goes, as far as just all kinds of stuff that after 13 years of working in hospitals and psych wards, I did see. So no, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I got to see things from a very interesting, almost like a fly on the wall kind of thing. And that's where I've learned a lot of what I think about people's mental conditions. I'm just looking at some of it. Let's see. Lindsay was off work and couldn't even cosplay a housewife. She had a nanny, her mother, and Patrick's mother available. I don't buy the postpartum psychosis when she's talking to him on the phone. I think talking to him on the phone is one of the things that really nailed it for at least for a lot of people. I don't believe she's paralyzed either. It's interesting you say that. I'm just going to point this out now, although I'll get to it later. Supposedly, there is evidence she's paralyzed. I do believe that she went out the window, but I do believe that she dropped to the ground and didn't realize it was frozen and landed on her feet like this, and that caused damage to the spine, or she landed on her butt, which caused damage to the spine. I don't believe she went head first out the window like that, because she has zero damage to her head or hands, and that I don't believe she threw herself out the window head first. I don't buy that. But it doesn't mean she's not paralyzed, and she could have screwed that up. She just wanted to look like she was taking her life, and then didn't. Hold on a second, let me roll down here because there's a lot of comments, and I want to get to the day of. Whew, wow. Let me see. Sorry, I wish I could comment on what everybody's saying here, but I can't catch up. That's why. Let me see who's said this here. Hold on a second. What the heck? Sometimes there are some issues, just technical issues here. When you push the little button, the button doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. Thank you very much, Bruin. Psychosis 8 months later, third child. It is confusing. That's unlikely that you didn't show issues prior to that. Also, thank you very much, Nancy. I appreciate it. And let's see, I'm trying to get down to the bottom here so I can catch up with all the comments. Thank you, Richard. Runners know big emotions fade after a hard run. And we're talking about Lindsay Clancy here, due to endorphins. This mellows people out of big emotions and psychosis. Was Lindsay Clancy flooded with endorphins? If so, why didn't she come to senses? I'll say this about Lindsay Clancy, Richard. She had an exercise program, which I think was extreme for, supposedly she had the baby and she's out running the next, whatever. She overdid it, which again would lead to having less time and being more exhausted, and also not accepting the fact that, hey, just had a baby, maybe I'll catch up with my body in a year. That stress that oh my God, my body, I got to fix my body, I got to be perfect. That causes stress, and it causes you not to like your baby. She said she wasn't connecting to the third child. She blamed it on the older children. It's their fault because I can't relate to my baby now. They're not. What does that have to do with anything? I mean, your kids are in nursery school. You have this extra time with your baby. Your kids, you can hold your baby in the night. You can sleep with your baby. What do you mean you can't connect to your baby because you're older kids? See, she has to blame somebody else besides herself. That's just weird. And do you have a different feeling, the third child than your first? Yes, I will say that's true. When my first child was born, I remember looking at her, and it was the most, like the world just turned upside down for me, because a day ago I wasn't a mother, and now I was a mother. I couldn't believe it. I was a mother, and there was this beautiful little baby. I was a mother. My second child was born. I'm like, oh yeah. He didn't change my mother world. But he was a boy, so that's kind of cool. I had a girl and I had a boy. He did change my world. But you know what I'm saying? No, at the moment he was born, I didn't go, oh my gosh, my world is different. It wasn't. It was like, oh, now I have to take care of you. He was a cutie. I mean, that was perfectly fine. When I adopted my son, he was 5. He changed my world a lot. Every child changes your world, but maybe not in the same way that first child does. And that's called being rational. And so if you're being rational, you don't have these crazy thoughts. So let me roll down here a little bit longer here. Okay, so I'm going to get to the day of. Whew, I tell you. When by the way, if you'd like to be in the regular live chats, I can see everybody's comments as they come in for the most part, because we have a small group usually. So that's what makes it nice. And maybe we have 10 people, 20 people. And then I after I do the live shows, I do put them up public, so you can see every one of my shows. But oh, that's an interesting point. Wait, I saw this go by. I think this is interesting. What's not interesting is I can't get the arrow to work on top. Oh. I don't know that this is an interesting part. Andrea had a long history of postpartum psychosis. No, she didn't. She had a long history of depression. It's an entirely different thing. What happens is the defense team, and I'm going to get to, this is why you think this, because after the fact, the defense team did retroactive history and made up a whole bunch of stuff, revisionist history that wasn't proven at the time. She was highly depressed because she was not handling having more children. A lot of times people said she was perfectly fine, but then she had these moments. After her father died, she got really depressed. Supposedly she thought she didn't take care of her father well enough. He had Alzheimer's for years. I mean, and she should know what Alzheimer's is, but somehow she decided she wasn't the perfect nurse for her father, and that depressed her. So she had a lot of expectations of herself, which were highly unreasonable, and apparently didn't have a real good sense of humor about a lot of stuff, which would be very helpful, because getting through life helps. It helps to be, that is true. Pharmacology is enough to make anyone crazy. Well, it's drugs. People don't want to use the word, but drugs. Drugs do not put your system back to its normal state. Drugs change your system from its normal state. If your normal state is, I'm reasonably depressed right now because my life sucks, and they give you drugs and you say, hey, my life doesn't suck as bad now. Yeah, it's because you're high or you're drunk or whatever you are. It's changing what you should be feeling to something is abnormal. So that, unless it's a very strange situation like schizophrenia, which I don't even think they're putting you back to normal schizophrenia. I think you're just dulling the issues that you're experiencing. And schizophrenia, nobody quite understands the whole issue there. This is what I was going to point out. You're a thinker, and Lindsay is a feeler. Thinkers do not understand feelers at all. Not true. Okay. So basically you're saying that I have no feeling. I'm not a feeler. I don't feel things. Of course I feel things. I feel great love. I feel great sadness. I felt depression. I'm a normal human being. And yes, I am also a thinker. I'm a logical person who says, hey, why the hell am I feeling depressed? Maybe because I just got divorced and I'm sleeping in my sister's house in the basement. No, my sister was great. Her husband was great. I stayed there for 4 years. We had a wonderful Three's Company thing. But I mean, I had left my house, my pets, my family was back in Maryland. It was tough. I was depressed. People said, are you going to get drugs? Are you going to go to the doctor because you have a chemical problem? I don't have a chemical problem. I'm depressed because, hey, my life just went upside down. So yes, I feel things, and I can understand people who feel things. The problem is these women were also, they could think. It's not that they can't think. They can think. It's that because I believe they both have borderline personality disorder, they were unable to analyze their own self properly to know that they had these massive issues. That's interesting. Allison says she had BPD. She was a drama queen. She planned it. My best friend is an attorney, and she has BPD. She's diabolical and brilliant. She definitely planned it. She wanted it out of her hard job. I mean, postpartum psychosis, again, it's a lot of the stuff that is not actually proven in a way that I would say is scientific. A lot of it is conjecture and guessing, and I'm going to show you how that's true when I get to that, the last part. I'm not going to go, do not say things about the husband and some affair and stuff, because we don't know that any of that is even true. That's stuff that's all over, that's in the internet, and so don't go there. Let's see. Okay. I'm going through a lot of comments here. She was not actually diagnosed with schizophrenia before the crime. That is actually not entirely true. She was thought maybe she had schizo. A lot of things were not really diagnosed. They were thoughts, maybe this, maybe that. They did not describe schizophrenia. They did not. I've never seen anything where she was rambling in ways that made zero sense, that she was hearing voices and seeing people. None of that was true, except afterwards. After the lawyers came in and the defense came in, suddenly she told people, and that's what I was going to get to, but I'll just say it here. She told psychiatrists then that she was having issues back then. hearing and seeing things. So a lot of that is, yeah, not exactly true. All right, let me roll down here. A couple more, and then I'm going to go to the day of. I wanted to say thank you to a couple people who sent. I'm trying to find the. It's really hard to do this. Swear to God, it's very hard. So many comments, and I can't seem to get to the bottom of them. So that sucks. Okay, I'm going to roll this way. Okay, I can't even do it. I just want to say thank you to Powder Toes. I love your insights. Thank you. And you're very, very generous, and I really appreciate it. And I wish I could put you up on the screen, but I can't figure out how to do it. And also Pat Brooks. Pat, if she told family members, thank you again, being very generous. If she told family members she was having feelings of hurting her precious little children and hearing voices, in your opinion, does that not make all involved guilty for those innocent babies being killed? And that is a great point. So now in the trial, Lindsay's family says, oh, she told us these things. If she told you those things, you would have been protecting those little grandchildren like crazy. You think I'd let, if my daughter came over and told me she was hearing voices that would kill my granddaughter? I'm going to just ignore it? And Patrick would have ignored it? No. If we knew that, we'd be Baker acting, getting her in the mental institution really quickly away from those children. And we would be protecting those children around the clock. No, yeah, it makes no sense. So if they just ignored that after she says, I'm thinking of killing the children. Okay, well, do you want to eat dinner now? No, that makes, yeah, they would be basically in collusion to allow the children to be in harm's way. I don't believe it ever was true, because nobody said it prior to the murders, and only after the defense team got involved is that a thing now. Cup says, thank you for your kind donation. Abusing drugs does not just mean taking too much. It means taking too little or not as prescribed. Very good. She was not compliant, so I'm tired of hearing about the medical excuse. That's very, very true. I mean, it's like, you go to a doctor with your issues, you get talk therapy, with the talk therapy, you're trying to figure out what you should do and what you shouldn't do to make your life doable, right? You do that. And then if you need some temporary medication, I call it drugs, to get you through a place where you can't wake up in the morning and function, okay, then you take that, and then you keep talking with the doctor about the drug you're taking and seeing whether it's working, and you keep going to talk therapy to make sure you're stable. And if you're not stable enough to be at home with your children and with those drugs, then you go and you commit yourself for at least a reasonable period of time till you're stable. That is not what happened with Lindsay. Absolutely didn't. And that isn't really what happened with Andrea either. Although she ended up in mental institution more than once, she was highly depressed. And she did what could look like she was trying to take her life, but I'm not sure. And she had weird behavior. There's no question about it. But people who are severely depressed do have weird behavior. But question about psychosis is, in this case, is did she hear voices? Was she truly schizophrenic? Did she hear voices? Did people tell her to do things? And none of that was true during the time she was there. It all came out after the defense rolled in. So that to me is, and that is true. Every drug changes 7 chemicals in the brain. I don't know what the 7, but yes, it changes the chemicals in your brain. That's when you change the chemicals. I mean, why do you think people do this stuff? Loretta says, I found one of them I can actually click on. We want more of these public lives with super chat options, but you'll need mods. I'm sure you have regulars who'll be up to the task. Generally speaking, this is just not something it's tough to do, and even with moderators, it's a tough thing to do. But I wanted to bring this to the public just because this is such an issue right now, and I just wanted to have it be open. So every once in a while I do that, but generally speaking, I prefer Patreon. The Patreon ones. Thank you. I found another. I can click this one too. Yay! Thank you, Anna Lucia. Appreciate it. But I prefer to do the Patreon ones just because it's more tolerable than trying to manage so much at one time. It's much trickier. So it's quieter in the other ones. Not that everybody here hasn't been pretty good. I'm really impressed because I was afraid I was going to have really disastrous stuff here, and everybody's been pretty cool. So thank you guys. I'm still rolling down here. Okay, here we have, well, this is what Annalicia said. Uh, can you analyze the symptoms of obsessive compulsive personality disorder? It's all about rigidity and control. Thanks for not allowing the tax on Patrick. Look, I'm not a psychologist, so one of the problems with all personality disorders is that there is a level of control that is excessive and needs that are excessive. And one of the parts about being obsessive is that you have to have things go your way, and you cannot accept that sometimes you're not perfect, they're not perfect, nobody's perfect. You don't have a sense, often don't have a sense of humor about things because everything is considered a slight. Anything that doesn't go right, you think is going to hurt your ego, instead of saying, well, I sucked at that. You know, it's like some of these women, like, for example, obsessive about their perfect houses. Everything has to be perfectly clean and da 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 da. And I'm looking around my house going, thank God the cleaners show up every 2 weeks because I suck at cleaning. I've always sucked at cleaning. I always hated it. Hated it. I married a Jamaican. That helped. He cleaned bathrooms and scrubbed floors. It was awesome. I like washing dishes, but that's about it. The only thing I like. I know I'm not perfect. I know there's a lot of things I'm not good at. I don't edit. That's why I do live shows. I hate editing. I don't do it. Other people are great at it. And so I appreciate people who do things that I can't. But a lot of people who have borderline personality disorder and obsessive personalities cannot stand that anybody would look at them and think they couldn't do something. They find that an insult. They find that it hurts their ego, that they're somebody's making fun of them, and they can't handle it. So when you have a woman who becomes a mother and she thinks she has to be a perfect mother and she's obsesses over everything, well, it all goes to hell because you can't be a perfect mother. Thank you, Lizbeth. I appreciate that. And here's Pat Brooks. Wait a minute. Almost deleted the comment. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Come on now. Work. No, that's not what. Oh, here we go. Pat Brooks says, thank you, Pat. That's how I feel. I have my precious son, and if that had happened to me, my husband and family would have committed me, and I would have wanted that. That's an interesting point. You would have wanted that because what's more important, you or your children? Okay, because same thing. If I had a problem where I thought my children were in danger, I would care more about my children than myself. I really appreciate that comment because neither one of these women seemed to appreciate. They were more concerned about what they needed than what their children needed. Thank you, Lord. Okay. I want to go to part 4, the day of. All right, the day of. And if you've sent me something over, and Tim just wait, Tim, part of some of the show would all share how we discovered Pat Brown. Yeah, not now, but okay. I've been out here for 6 years, and I was on TV for 15, so maybe then. All right. Thank you, Willie. That's a good point too, Willie Nanny. Thank you. Psychosis does not equal violence or weak defense. That is also true. You can have all kinds of interesting thoughts, but not at all be dangerous to your children. So let's go to the day of. Both of these women did the same thing the day of. They made sure the coast was clear so they could commit the act they wanted to commit. Oh, by the way, who won on the third round? I think Andrea still wins on the third round. I think the defense has got 3 over here and 0 over here, just because Lindsay wasn't exhibiting as much bizarre behavior as she was. She was exhibiting some bizarre behavior. They going to the institution and sitting there and, like this and ripping her hair out. Okay, she wins on that. It makes her look more unstable. And also, well, she really wasn't talking about anything about religion when she was there. That also is brought up later, and I'll do that in part 5, that the defense brought up all the religious stuff later because that would then validate that she was crazy. Okay? She didn't bring up any of that stuff except go to God on the day of, which she just claimed she said. So anyway, I think round 3 again, I think she's kind of got it on her side. But okay, let's go to round 4. So the day of, both of them made sure the coast was clear. They both had people around to go to say, please save me and my kids. But no, even more important, save my kids from me. I just got to go with this one. That's funny. Thank you. I wait until I'm inspired to clean. That can take a while. Yeah. I'm never inspired to clean, so that's why I hire people, because I suck at it. And And people come to my house, and I can sometimes be embarrassed if my cleaners haven't been here in a while. So now see, here's the problem. I'm working on StreamYard, and sometimes things just don't work as well as you'd like them, because now I'm trying to get things off the screen, and I can't do it because I can't find it here. Hold on a second, guys. I have to move this back up. Man, this is so annoying when this happens. So I need to clear the screen, but I can't. Oh, nope, that's not it. Thank you, Mary Lou. All these wonderful. Oh, here we go. It's a different color. Mary Lou Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate that too. I'm going to stand right here. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, so part 4, the day of, they had people right near them. Both of them had relatives right near them that they could say, my mind is not working right. Please come take care of the kids. I gotta run away. I gotta get help by whatever. That's not what happened. Both of them very methodically, very carefully plotted to kill their children. Now, of course, her defense is saying that she was perfectly fine, and then she was hungry, and so her husband went out to get some food, and it just then the psychosis took over just like that, and she said, "Oh, I'm not hungry now. I want to kill the kids." No, she strangled them. Sorry. So something happened just like that. But up until then, Patrick wasn't saying she was acting bizarrely. Her husband wasn't saying she was acting bizarrely. So both of their husbands did not see bizarre behavior to the point where they're like, well, why can't you leave me alone with the kids? So they were not exhibiting psychosis or even severe mental issues. Just because they were slightly depressed or not happy at that moment did not mean that they saw anything, because I'm telling you again, when I've been in the hospital, I've seen people in psychosis. Good Lord. And I've seen people who have ongoing schizophrenia. Good Lord. You know that something's not right. And it goes on hour after hour after hour after hour after hour. Like this. And you're like, what's wrong with them? You know, oh my God, they're losing it. You know that. But these women are perfectly fine. They're doing about their business, taking care of the kids. She was doing stuff with the kids. They were watching cartoons and having breakfast. Now they're alone. And both of them do a very methodical murder. Again, not very evident of psychosis. Sometimes when psychosis hits with people, they're all over the map. They're like grabbing it. They're like a knife. They're fending off, I don't know, aliens or demons or whatever. And they're slashing away at anything that's near them, including themselves. It's just kind of crazy stuff. They were methodical. They picked out a method of execution. She picked out the exercise bands and the location, which is the basement. She picked out the bathroom, and her methodology was to fill the bathtub up. It was with cold water, by the way. Fill it up, and each one of them took their children one at a time and murdered them. Those little innocent babies were saying, "Mommy, what are you doing?" Especially with Andrea. Her oldest son fought back. He was fighting because his sister was lying drowned in the tub already. He knew what was coming when she drowned him. He fought, and she won. She won after the other. They murdered one, and supposedly, well, the psychosis never cleared. So then they did it again, and the psychosis didn't clear. Oh, except for the phone call. "Hi, Patrick, how you doing?" "Yeah, okay, sure, fine." And then after they're all dead, really, she was supposedly only suicidal. And she actually, the statement later made was some kind of thing where she was the problem. She was the one that was causing the problem. But she didn't get rid of herself. She only got rid of the kids. She didn't even try to get rid of herself. She just called up and said, "I got rid of them." Told the police, "Come over." She didn't even try. Now, she made an attempt to try. Theoretically, she took some pills, which again, certainly weren't enough to do her in. And not husband was going to come home. I don't even know if she really took the pills at that time, but she had some in her system, and none of them were going to kill her. Then she took the knife to herself, and she didn't do anything that was going to actually cause her death from the knife. And she knew that because she knows pretty much where things are. She's a nurse, for God's sakes. And you want to do yourself in. Interesting enough, along with the wrist thing that women do, that other thing they do is just this with a knife. And the reason is they don't want to mess with their face up or their neck. So they just do it straight for the heart. She didn't do that. So she did this thing. And then as far as the window thing goes, that was the one was kind of like a coup de grace type of thing. It's like, okay, maybe I should do more. Now, did she want to do more because she really wanted to kill herself and realized she'd done these stupid methods that didn't work? Maybe she did really think, I'm going to go to prison. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to jump out the window. Maybe, except I don't think she dove out that window. I agree with the prosecution. I think she hung out that window. I think she crawled up. I think she thought she was going to drop 2 stories, which is not that far. And with soft ground, she might have landed and not done much damage, or she might have broken a foot, and then she could lie there looking pitiful. I think she didn't realize the ground was frozen, and that's how she, one of those ways, did the damage. But no damage to hands and head. So to me, she didn't throw herself out the window head first. Can I prove that? No. Could she have been trying to kill herself? Maybe. Or was she just trying to look like she was trying to kill herself? Maybe. We actually can't prove one way or the other. But her method of killing the children was methodical. And until that point, she didn't hear voices. She didn't say she wanted to kill the kids, except for, again, later, which is round 5. She also never said she wanted to kill the children. She didn't say any voice told her to do it. And she only wanted to harm herself. And yet, she didn't. So then you have this situation where it's, okay, so round 4, I will say I'll give her the point on that. Why? Because at least she threw herself out a window. It looked like she was trying to do herself in. So maybe you could say she just lost her mind completely. She, on the other hand, methodically killed her kids and then called the police and said, pick them up. By the way, told her husband, it's time, come home. And then a horrible, the husbands came home, and this is why I feel really sick when people are just so mean. They came home to find all the children murdered. And I don't care what kind of guys they were, really, quite frankly. I don't care that they remarried or whatever. I don't care. They went through absolute hell, and none of us know how we would act if we had to withstand all of that. Because I can't imagine anything freaking worse. So I will give her credit for appearing to kill herself, at least. And she was so methodical. It's bizarre. So I will give her the 1 on this and the 0 on that. So I think she's still ahead, 3-1. So now we'll go to round 5. What happened after the defense came rolling through? Okay, so a couple comments here. Pat, okay, no, I already think I commented on that one. Yes, thank you very much, Pat Brooks. All right, so now round 5. Now she's in the hospital, and the first thing she does when she wakes up is ask for a lawyer and about her legs. That doesn't look good for her. When she's in the hospital, well, she didn't go to the hospital, she went to prison. So she had this advantage of being disheveled in prison. Her husband came and said, oh, she looked disheveled. Well, she's in prison. She can't do much. She's in prison. Nobody's taking care of her, like at least in the hospital. She looks pitiful. People are, giving her baths and things, and she's in prison, so she's going to look disheveled. And then here come the psychiatrists and the defense team, and they're working up a defense. So understand that, for example, take the RV place she was staying at. Some people said she never came out of her bus. She just was hidden in there, never came out. Well, that's not true, because they did find other people that said the opposite. But if you're the defense, what you do is you send out private investigators or whatever to get information from many people. Let's say you interview 10 people, and 8 people say, oh, I saw her out with the kid. They were playing. She'd sit outside, blah, blah, blah. And 2 people said, I never saw her come outside. Who do you think are going to put on the stand? Who's going to be a witness? The 2. And you hope the prosecution doesn't find the other 8. That's the way it works. And vice versa with the prosecution. So They are looking for people who are going to support whatever they're putting out there. So you can't always believe exactly what these witnesses say. A lot of them are paid experts, especially the psychiatrists are paid experts. And if they're working for the defense, they're going to say what the defense wants. If they work for the prosecution, they may say what the prosecution wants. Well, they'd have to, actually, because they're never going to let them on the stand if they're not going to say what they want. So you find somebody who will support your side of the trial. And now you've got, she's in prison, and apparently when she's in prison, she gets interviewed. And after she's in the hospital, she gets interviewed. That's when she's there with the psychiatrist. She's there with the psychiatrist, I believe, who then says, she calls her husband and says, I heard voices. Well, first of all, once the defense gets involved, they can tell you what you should be saying. And they are with their client, it's not videotaped and it's not audio taped. When they're in a private room talking to them alone and there's no proof of what's being said, I can tell you absolutely a defense attorney will say, here is what you need to say, otherwise you're going to go to prison or get the death penalty. They will say, they're not going to believe if you didn't hear voices. You better say you heard voices. You better say Satan made you do it. You better say this. You better say that, because otherwise you're going to prison for life. And then they can go to the family and say to the family, hey, you better present your daughter in a way that is going to help her. Like, she heard voices. She came to you and told you she heard voices, right? They do this kind of stuff. People think that the defense attorneys aren't manipulating and masterminding an entire bunch of information. That's what they're doing. Then they find the right psychiatrist and they send the psychiatrist in. They've already told, hey, better say you heard voices. Then the psychiatrist says, oh my God, she told me she heard voices. Really? And so this revisionist history comes in. Suddenly they go back in time, and now they're way worse. Everybody, they had way worse voices, hallucinations, everything prior to the murders, because they need that for the defense. Now, I want to point out something else that was really interesting. Talk about diagnoses. All right, listen to these diagnoses. It's just amazing. Let's see. Oh, here's one. This, by the way, was one of the original ones for, I think it was Andrea. Did you hear anything encouraging you? No, just thoughts. If that's the truth, then she never heard voices, right? So, by the way, these intrusive thoughts, let's talk about the stupid intrusive thought thing. What are intrusive thoughts? Well, psychiatrists have named intrusive thoughts something that you would not normally think, but these thoughts just pop into your mind and you go, oh, I can't believe I'm thinking that. Where do you think intrusive thoughts come from? Unless you believe there are demons putting them in your head, intrusive thoughts come from your own damn mind. They may not be thoughts you're trying not to think about, but then you think about them. So you're with your children and you think, oh, my children are driving me crazy. I'd like to shake them. Oh, I thought about shaking my children. I'm on a diet. I have an intrusive thought about eating pizza. No, it's in my head already. The intrusive thoughts are nothing more than our own thinking. It's just ridiculous. Are they pleasant thoughts sometimes? No, maybe they're you have all kinds of things turning in your mind. You hate your life. You're not liking your kids. You're pissed off at your husband. So you have all these thoughts like, I wish my husband would get hit by a truck. Doesn't mean you're going to kill him, but I want to think about that truck. It's still not an intrusive thought. It's just a thought. What's interesting to me is that these intrusive thoughts a lot of times don't include things you wouldn't ever think about. Like I thought about hurting myself or the children, but I didn't think about having sex with the dog. Why not? If they're intrusive, why don't you suddenly just want to have sex with the dog? There's all kinds of things you could intrude if you were getting these voices and stuff telling you to do, but they're always something you actually wanted to do anyway. So they're actually your thoughts. I don't know why people think they're not your thoughts. They're your thoughts. Okay, so by the way, this is another thing that came in the Andrea Yates case. Most new onset postpartum psychosis diagnoses are bipolar unless proven otherwise. That's an interesting one. Let's see. I want to look at some of the other. Oh, Um, Dr. Resnick. Okay, Dr. Resnick is the defense attorney for both these cases. I mean, sorry, the defense psychiatrist for both these cases. Brought in by the defense and spent a lot of time with these women and have come up with these determinations or diagnoses. All right, let's look at this one. Dr. Resnick had given the diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder at trial. This is for Yates. Diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder at trial. But then he says later on, I'm strongly wedded to the diagnosis. What? So you in court, you said she had schizoaffective disorder. And now later on you go, oh, maybe not. So how dependable are you? How good are you at your job? Then he said this. Lithium is the appropriate treatment for either disease. He's talking about, I think he's talking about bipolar. I'm not sure. He regularly pointed out his specialty is forensic psychiatry, not psychopharmacology. But his opinion is that if Andrea Yates remains free of psychosis for at least 2 years on lithium alone, her diagnosis will be pure bipolar rather than schizoaffective disorder. Sure, okay. Yeah, how about this one? Dr. Purrier, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. If someone was holding a fire to my feet and said, pick a diagnosis today, I'd probably pick schizoaffective, he says, moving away from her trial diagnosis of schizophrenia in consideration of Yates' recent stability on lithium. One, because the psychosis she had was much more than you usually see in bipolar disorder. And two, schizoaffective disorder is both a psychotic illness and a mood illness. Now you have these two different people saying two different things, and neither of them can make up their mind as to actually which one they believe. Yeah, all right. So, after the fact, after the murders, the defense brings in the psychiatrist, and they're the ones that then talk to her. And I watched, by the way, they had in this book. Oh, I forgot to put the picture up. It's called. Okay, it's the main book on Susan O'Malley wrote this book. Are You Alone? Wait a minute. Sorry, it just went off my screen. It's called Are You There Alone? The Unspeakable Crime of Andrea Yates. It's the biggest book on Andrea Yates. And she has some of the book has the psychiatrist actual transcript of what she talked about with Andrea. And she was what I call leading Andrea. You know how when you're doing a police investigation, the investigator is not supposed to lead the person he is interrogating, right? So you're not supposed to go, so you went into the room, what did you do? I strangled her? Yes, you did. How did you do that? With my hands. Oh, no, you know you didn't do that with your hands. Okay, I did that with a rope. Come on, you know there was no rope in that room. The guy's like, what's left in the room? Okay, a telephone cord and maybe the curtain cord. And he picks one of them and he goes, see, that's what you did. That's leading the person you're interrogating. So the psychiatrist is in there going, so did you hear this? Did you do that? Did you feel this way? So she's basically leading her and leading her and leading her. And a lot of times she's like, okay, I agree. That to me is improper. But it's the defense psychiatrist and the prison psychiatrist. They already, one person said, they came in and she was like, oh, she's the sickest person I've ever dealt with. Well, she killed 5 kids. I'm going to say that you're not going to look at her and go, oh, she's a sweetie. She's perfectly healthy. You're going to think, oh my God, the worst. I mean, I don't know anybody here who's killed 5 kids. So are you coming in with objectivity, or are you coming in with this concept that nobody could kill 5 kids unless they had a severe mental illness and had psychosis? And then already you're starting into that thing. And that's exactly what the defense wants. So they both have these psychiatrists saying these things, all in revisionist history that was not said at the time. So after the fact, who in round 5 comes off better for the defense or the prosecution after the fact? Andrea Yates wins again. Uh, that fact that she woke up and said, was a lawyer and what's wrong with my legs, didn't do her a lot of good. And there is a retroactive thing where in court, the best thing that the defense had going was that her own family claimed that she had heard these voices and was wanted to hurt the children, which again is revisionist history. I don't believe it. I think they're just trying to save their daughter. So that's that did pretty well with that in court. But with her in court, as far as later, they had all these psychiatrists doing the revisionist history saying she was the sickest person they've ever seen. Oh, and I forgot about to bring in the religious stuff here. So one of the issues here, she didn't have anything religious to go with. She didn't have any ideations that for a long time could be considered really like dangerous or out of norm, excessive. She did. So she and her husband did hook up with this guy who was a preacher that went around the whole world with his family, and he preached in other countries and stuff like that. And they were not going to a regular church. They were kind of based on this guy's thinking, and Rusty wanted them, this is the story, that Rusty wanted them to focus on that kind of strict religious beliefs and a strict way to raise your family so you keep your children from the ills of the world. A lot of people think that, and yet they're not quite that excessive with it. But supposedly she got into reading all of the book and everything, and getting obsessed with the evils and the satanic stuff, and that Satan could hurt you and get into you and hurt your kids, and you had to save them. How much of that was before and how much of that is related after, it gets a little questionable. But because she did methodically kill her kids and didn't try to hurt herself, that's why the first jury, I think, found her guilty. But I think they worked hard on the second round to really push the religious stuff, so that if she truly was a woman trapped by her husband in a horrible situation where she had no freedom, and she was being all this, she had to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect Christian, the perfect whatever. She had to keep Satan away from all the kids, and she believed that. And she believed that Satan could get in you and in the kids, and they would think they're saying by the time she made that decision, even though it was methodical, she really thought she had to kill the children to save them. That's the story. She didn't think that herself herself. She supposedly, the story afterwards is, she killed the children to save them from Satan ever getting a hold of them, so that therefore they'd go straight to God, essentially. Like she said, go to God. Kids would go to God and it wouldn't be influenced by Satan. But she didn't kill herself because in killing them, she was supposed to suffer excessively after the fact because she'd done a bad thing. She knew she did a bad thing. She knew she committed murder of 5 innocent children, and she thought she should be tortured by the system in order to do penance. Although apparently she didn't think she should really go to prison. She preferred to be in the mental institution where, by the way, where she's staying at, she gets art classes, sports. I mean, I think she likes being in this protective environment where she doesn't have to work. She gets all the attention, and she gets to do a lot of stuff. I think she prefers being there. Not because she's necessarily needs to be there, but because it's just easier for her at this point in time. She gets all the attention she needs and a lot of sympathy. But I think the second jury thought that maybe if she really believed this stuff, she could not help herself, even if it looked methodical. She couldn't help herself from doing something she thought she should do because of the spiritual warfare going on. But why she didn't kill herself is another question. Why wouldn't she do that? And she had her excuse for that later on, but that doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't believe it. So do I think she had messed up thinking? Yes. Do I think she was excessive in the thinking? Do I think she decided to have this be part of her thinking? Yes. Does that, in my opinion, exonerate her from methodically planning to kill the children? She never actually asked for help with her thinking. She didn't even talk to the preacher, like a lot. She didn't contact him right before or anything saying, hey, look, I'm having these thoughts. Am I wrong in what I'm thinking? Because you are the guy I've been following. What do you think? Should I kill the children? She didn't ask anybody that. And I don't think she asked because she wanted to get rid of the problem. the same way as Lindsay Clancy. I think both of the women have borderline personality disorder. I think both of them were overwhelmed, didn't like their lives, and eliminated the problem. I would find, if I were on the jury, both of these women guilty. But I think she won round 5 too. So I think 5-1. But guess what? Jury did find her not guilty by reason of insanity. I think those are the reasons. And she only really got 1 point. So what do I think the jury's going to do? Well, I honestly think the jury's going to find her not guilty for the same reason. Not because of the religious stuff, but just because I think they're going to look at this and say she tried to get help and nobody gave it to her, and she's paralyzed. She tried to kill herself, so she's paralyzed. So if she tried to kill herself, it means that it wasn't like she just wanted to get these kids out of her life. She was willing to die too, so that couldn't be the reason. And I think they're going to find her not guilty by reason of insanity. And I think she will go to the Psychiatric Institute. And now, supposedly, she might stay there the rest of her life, but I don't think that's true. In her case, they keep saying she had some kind of mental disorder that's an ongoing schizophrenic type of thingy. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But at least when she came in, that was the concept. The concept over here was that she's perfectly fine, except for that bipolar diagnosis they're now giving her. And it was only because of postpartum psychosis that her brain went kablooey and she couldn't help herself. So once she's now in a psychiatric institute, she has no more children. She can't have postpartum depression anymore or psychosis, and she's in a wheelchair. I think they're going to say there's no actual ongoing mental disorder, like a psychotic disorder of some sort. They're not going to find one that they can keep saying that she needs medication for. And at a certain point, what do? Well, she's not a danger to herself anymore. She's not a danger to children because she doesn't have any. She promises she'll never get pregnant again. I think she's got such a fan club now. I would not be surprised if she was out within 5 years and was out, trying to help other women who have postpartum psychosis. And supposedly the son of Sam Law keeps her from making money. Even though she would be not guilty by reason of insanity, supposedly she still can't make money because off the murder. So theoretically, she can't get paid to be in a documentary. She can't get paid to write the book. Proceeds that she might write a book can't go to her. And she does TED Talks. She can't get paid for. That's the theory, but there's always workarounds. And documentary people, book people have workarounds. And some of the workaround can be the money can go to your relative, who then can give you money. And you can also get the glory, you can get the fame, and you can get all the attention. If she gets out, I think that's what we're going to see. If she doesn't go to prison, if the jury finds her not guilty, and she goes to the Psychiatric Institute, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they'll keep her there for 20, 30 years. But I don't think so. I just don't. And I want to be wrong, but I don't think so. I think she, in a number of years, we might see her being a heroine, All right, okay. Let's go with some of your comments now. Whew. So, she did not have visions of killing him. Again, Jessica, this is what they said later after the defense was there. See, happens later. She didn't tell him back then that she wanted to kill her kids. I do not see any evidence of that. That was what is the revisionist history. Let's see. Pat is my spirit person. We think and feel. Which Pat? Oh, me, not Patrick. Oh my God. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to go to the anti-Patrick stuff. Just please stop. We don't know anything about him, and I think that to go with what gossip is on the internet is not acceptable. Oh, that's a good point. You have no idea anything is off in psychosis. You're literally flying by the seat of your pants. The way she methodically killed her children goes completely against her defense. It does, but people don't. They're telling people that psychosis is so clever that it will fool you into acting normal. That's what they're actually saying. And again, like you said, when I've been around people who are in psychosis or have schizophrenia, you know it. It's not. It's not anything hidden, because you're like, whoa, maybe they need some help. If you can go through days being perfectly normal, to me, you're not in psychosis, and no, there's not some sneaky psychosis thing going on. That, and people, there are people coming out now saying, "Oh, when I was in psychosis, I pretended I was fine, but I was still hearing voices and saying things." They're showing up all over the internet, but I don't buy it. I don't. And now, do I believe that in some early stuff, yes, you might have some concerns and you don't want to tell people about because you don't want to look. I get that. I'm not saying that's not true. You know something's off, but you don't want to admit it. I get that. But if you're really to that level of psychosis, murdering your children is a big deal. I mean, again, so taking your own life is a much more normal thing to do. It's easier to do, and then you just, you're not hurting anybody else. You're just saying, I can't deal with anything anymore, and I think I'm a bad wife, a bad mother, a bad whatever. I'm just going to take myself out of the picture. That's one thing. And a lot of people do that, unfortunately. They just think they just don't see a good future, so they just remove themselves, and they don't realize the damage they do to other people, the pain they cause. They're only thinking about themselves at that moment, and they're like, I just don't want to deal with anything. But to kill your children, to watch them die in front of you. These are the kids you supposedly cared for. Either you have a severe personality disorder, or you truly are psychotic. But I don't see the proof of psychosis here, and I think that to me is the problem. Um, thank you, Cup. I appreciate that. Um, let's see. This thing is just not functioning again. I don't know why there is. Oh, here we go. You think so? All defense experts have been destroyed on cross. I don't know that that's true. And it depends how you see it. And as I've always pointed out about lay juries, is you only need one juror to think, oh, it had to be psychosis. That's it. You just need one. The prosecution has a very high bar and the defense has a very low one. The defense can try to make sure during voir dire that they can get as many people as possible in that jury that are going to be on their side, or just going to be confused or emotional or not understand half of the stuff that's going on. And from comments that I've seen out in the internet world, I see a lot of stuff that I'm like, hope they're not on a jury anytime soon, because I call it 12 people off a bus stop. And the sad part is that the prosecution has to get all 12 people to agree, but the defense only has to get one to disagree. How is that fair? So I'm for a professional jury system, not judges, but a professionally trained jury system where the people who are going to do the analysis of what is being said in court have training. And, because I feel very sorry for the jury. The stuff they had to see on both of these cases with these dead children, because they're showing them the photos and all that stuff. That's horrible for them. They have PTSD the rest of their dang lives. It's not fair to the jurors. They're being forced into being on the jury unless they figure out how to get off of it. They're being forced. They're not being paid. Their lives are being upended so they can do this duty as a citizen, and they're going in to a job they have no training for and don't have the emotional, also sometimes the emotional ability to deal with it. I say some of these people are very feeling and not as thinking. I've worked in this field for so long, and it doesn't mean I don't have feelings, but you do get used to it. You do get used to it. You can look at pictures and go, oh, now they only chopped her up a little bit. It doesn't mean I didn't care that the woman got chopped up. It just means that you've seen so many. It's like, okay, that was only 4 chops. This was 15. It's terrible, but you can look at the evidence, do everything without having the overwhelming emotions. I can look at pictures of 3 dead children and feel that's really sad, but I can also do it as a professional. And if you haven't been there and done that, it's cruel. It's cruel. I think poor jury. I feel very sad for the jury. Um, ooh, that's an interesting point. So says, yes, family is very supportive, but she didn't trust them prior to the kid's murder. No, no. And on top of that, maybe they're feeling very guilty that they didn't catch on. They didn't do anything. So now they're feeling guilty. So now they feel like their daughter committed this crime, or their sister committed this horrible crime, and now she's going to go away forever. And also, it makes your family look really bad. You know what I mean? So if you can just say, "Oh, we didn't see, she did," I don't know. Now they're admitting that, but they are admitting that she heard voices now prior to that and said about hurting the children, and they didn't do anything. So I don't think that makes them look very good. But they're just trying to keep her out of prison now, I think is what they're trying to do. Um, this person's, I'm not going to, that's why the prosecution asked Sue about murder being a mortal sin. It was to get the idea in there to refute Resnick and the statement, go to God. I said, sorry about the caps. I appreciate that. It really did not go over well as far as it looked. It was a bad kind of, people thought that should never have been asked, but I see what your point is. Right. I see what your point is. And I think that is a good point. It's probably why she did it, but it came across kind of not fortunate. Michelle says, Lindsay wanted back her life before the children came along. They caused the narcissist to lose her perfect image and perfect control and perfect appearance. And I absolutely believe that. A lot of times the people who have borderline personalities or even highly narcissistic, even towards psychopathy, have illusions about how something is. In other words, almost a fairy tale illusion because they don't understand the reality of it. So having a baby, oh, it's just going to be the perfect baby. And then they just do things A, B, C, and D. And then that's that. And then you have a baby and you go, whoa, the baby didn't agree to that. Baby is a baby. Baby does what baby does, and your body does what your body does. And again, now you're nursing and, you got your boobs or whatever. And then your baby stops nursing and your boobs go up, whatever. But that's called life. And then you get older. Some people don't deal well with that either because if you get older, your perfect look goes away and you have to use a slight filter. It's only slight, but it's some of these things are demoralizing and some of these things aren't fun. But hopefully what you see is that the positive outweighs the negative. Having 3 beautiful kids, having 5 beautiful kids, watching them grow up and all the fun things you get to do with them. Yeah, sometimes you don't get enough sleep. Sometimes you're annoying little critters. But hey, you had a family. You wanted a family. You got a family. And they will grow up one day and move on. And then you'll miss them. You'll have the empty nest syndrome. And that's sad, because I really loved I've had 2 careers with sign language, medical sign language interpreting and as a criminal profiler. But I will say this, my years with the children surpass everything else. I absolutely loved being a mom. It's just the coolest thing ever. And I'm still glad that I have my 3 children. They live right around here in Maryland. My granddaughter's here. We all get along. And I am divorced, but my ex comes out and they love their dad. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I absolutely loved it. With all the imperfections. Oh, there's a good point. She cried wolf forever. Why would Patrick take her seriously? That is a problem. So, and he's a guy. So, she complains about this, she complains about that, and after a while, you stop listening. So again, I don't know what kind of guy he was. I don't know what kind of guy Rusty was because I wasn't there. I can't, and I haven't met them personally. I'm not doing, a huge thing, getting into things. Rusty, there is some issue of Rusty seeming to be a bit controlling and all of that. But again, she chose the man and she chose to stay. And she chose to believe in the religious thing that she could have picked a different church. She could have picked a more community style thing. I don't know how much he kept her imprisoned or she imprisoned herself. But there are choices between leaving that prison in one way or the other and killing all your children to get rid of the prison. So, where am I at here? Okay, I'm trying to get down here. Okay. Um, about lack of support. Both the women had a lot of support. They did. They had a lot of options. Some people don't have any options. I mean, they really don't. I've been around people, well, I mean, they really, their lives are very difficult. And yeah, they both had family around. They both did get psychiatric help. I mean, maybe people say it wasn't good psychiatric help. And they both had husbands. There are single moms out there who are drowning, you know. And so and they had like I know that when my daughter was born, I was we had gone out to California and I was staying in a ghetto area, and my husband was going to a technical school and we didn't have much money, and he got money to go to the technical school for 4 months, and we were living on very little bit amount of money. So I think the apartment was like $200 a month, and it was like an efficiency. And I went into labor. I was sleeping on the floor. We didn't even have any furniture. And after I went to the hospital, had the baby, and he rushed out to his Mexican friends who were on a soccer team with him, and he managed to get a single bed, a bassinet, and a couch that went like this. And that single bed was not. It was kind of hard to sleep on, considering the baby never slept on the bassinet. But then he managed to get a mattress for the floor, like a queen size mattress or king size mattress, or probably queen for the floor. And then we slept on the floor for a year on the queen size mattress. And it was kind of a scuzzy little apartment. But guess what? He was getting training. I was able to be home with the baby. Good thing about being in the ghetto was a lot of the women weren't working, so I had company. And but my parents were on the other side of the country. His parents were on the other side of the country. And later on, we decided to move back with the baby, and we moved back to Maryland so that we'd be near both sets of grandparents. And then we got a little more support being here, and then I reached out to mothers groups and homeschooling groups along the way. Oh, yeah, it's just amazing that when a person says everything about their life is super difficult, when they actually have enough money, they have food on the table, they're married, they got options. And I don't think I'd say that her life was way easier than Andrea's life, only because of this concept of living in this bus, which again was in a hot area. So they say all they need to do is sleep in it and could run around all the time outside. Was it the most easy choice? No. And eventually he got the house for them. Then they moved into the house, and then she killed the children. So, yeah, I'm surprised you didn't kill Patrick too. You know, women don't tend to do that as much as men. Men tend to annihilate the entire family, especially the spouse. If you take Chris Watts, he wanted to move on. Jeffrey McDonald wanted to move on, kill the wife and the kids so they can be single again. And some men who are very depressed, because usually it's a midlife crisis thing where they've lost their job, they're in financial trouble, whatever. They're not happy. So then they kill the whole family, then they kill themselves. But women oddly tend usually just to kill the kids. Fascinating. Let's see. Oh, it's a loud man. The psychiatrist took over in a loud male voice, the X-Files. You got to make up something. And interesting, yeah, where are the women demons? I'm just wondering. But I think the concept that it's more of a demanding voice, and people tend to say that's a male voice, not a kill your kids. It's like they got to make up something. But there are people who hear voices. Again, there are people who see things that aren't there. There are people that hear things that aren't there. And the only way I can explain this for people who don't understand about schizophrenia, it's kind of like this. I'm a big dreamer, and I am a lucid dreamer, and I have really vibrant dreams. I can sometimes control the dreams. I can sometimes go from awake to in the dream and still be awake enough to say, oh, I want to do this and that. And so they're very vibrant. If you cross your awake life with your unawake life. So dreams they happen when you're asleep, but in reality, you're creating in your brain this whole world and all these things that you're doing in your brain. Now, if you cross that into your life, that's you're awake, you're still seeing and hearing what's going on in that world that you're creating in your brain that doesn't exist. But in your dream, you will see people standing there, you will hear their voices, you will feel things, you will, you know, I don't know about other people, but my dreams are in color. I meet people, I have fun with them. I mean, so if they cross into the real world, I'm going to be sitting there seeing all of this happening. And I'm going to be talking to people, and other people going, who the hell is she talking to? I'm going to hear somebody yell because I can hear them yell. So that kind of psychosis does exist, and that's part of what schizophrenia is about. That's just, and then nobody quite understands why these two worlds collide, and why the world that's supposed to be hidden in your head is now going into your wake hours. Nobody really understands it. I'm fascinated by it, but I don't think people really understand it. But that's so people who are really schizophrenic or psychotic really do have an overlap. I do think it's very hard to mask when you're really seriously psychotic or schizophrenic. That's why people get you help. Okay, if somebody's talking about religion, please stop. Okay, and I ask people not to talk about that. I didn't see it because it's hard to see things here. But if that's you who's doing that, please stop. We're not talking about religion here because it's not necessary to do so. Well, understand again. She was hospitalized, but she asked to leave the hospital, and nobody saw anything but some depression, and they gave her some medication. She never said she was going to kill the kids. Nobody would see that coming. No way they would see that coming, because he always thought she was a good mother and she was always concerned about the kids. Didn't see it coming. So I can't blame him for that. But in retrospect, yeah, you can look back and think, well, I should have. But who will ever? It's hard to say. It really is. Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you think I'm a voice of reason. I try to be. But I do think she wanted the kids gone. I think that is one of the problems that she was saying. She's just having so many problems with her. I think Pat, that's not me, was getting fed up with her. He wanted the perfect career woman, very conscious, image conscious. I don't know that that's true. See, again, you're blaming somebody who you don't even know what he was dealing with. You have no clue. Nobody, first of all, the old problem with marriage is you always hear two sides to it. Some people getting divorced. This person says that person caused the marriage fall apart. This person says that they're the person. I'm going to blame my ex-husband. He probably has some stories to tell women about me. Who's right? But we stop bragging on him, because we just don't know. We don't. Yes, I would think that psychosis would have shown in Lindsay. It would have been shown in her speech, her eyes, her movements, and none of that showed. More of it showed up with Andrea. She had very bizarre behaviors, and a lot of it was, they said catatonic state. I wasn't there. I don't know what they're calling catatonic state. People get severely depressed, will crawl into themselves. It doesn't mean they're psychotic. And this is what I'm saying. I don't know. They didn't say she was rambling and saying all kinds of weird stuff. They didn't say she was in the hospital hallucinating, seeing people, hearing voices. They didn't say any of that. They just said she withdrew and she wasn't speaking. And people who get depressed, a lot of people go to sleep for days. Just regular people, it's like, okay, I just don't want to get up in the morning because I don't see any good point in it. So you just go back to sleep. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. All Lindsay ever wrote about in her journals was how much Patrick helped her. And interesting enough, Andrea never had anything that bad to say about Rusty either. I mean, again, what the actual dynamics were. It's hard to say. I don't know. Let's see. Trying to click. Man, I don't know what is wrong with my little arrow today. The arrow that goes down so I can move everything. Sometimes it just doesn't want to work. RIP the little babies, that's for sure. I never said that. I don't know if you're talking about me. Somebody said there's no such thing as mental. I'm saying there's no such thing as mental illness or defect. I'm not saying that at all. Like no human being. No, I don't know if you're saying that's what I'm saying, but if that's what you think I'm saying, you're misunderstanding me. Because I say there is schizophrenia, there is psychosis, there's severe depression, and I do believe in personality disorders. What I find problematic is the conflation of them, when they're conflating two different issues, or the exaggerating one issue and making it into another issue. And that's what that happens in a court of law. I'm trying to remember when they said he couldn't leave the kids alone, because she did not say she was going to hurt the kids. And also, you have to understand, okay, I'm going to say this because I've worked in hospitals. Doctors, a lot of times, and psychiatrists aren't the best communicators. You'd think they would be, but they're not. And they sometimes have a very short period of time. They're rushed, they're pressured. And you don't know what they actually said to people. I've seen doctors write something down, but that's not what they said to the patient. Maybe they didn't want to overwhelm the patient. So they go, maybe just hang around her a little bit more. Maybe she just doesn't need to be, hanging alone with the children. Meaning, that it's just better if you were there more often. Maybe the person didn't actually say, don't leave her alone with the children because I'm concerned that she might kill them. I don't think they said that to Rusty. So this is the problem. We're hearing this, again, retroactively and revisionist type of stuff. And we don't know that what they wrote in notes is the same thing they told the patient or the patient's family or the husband or whatever. We don't know. And I've seen too much of it happen in hospitals, and you get confused. You get sometimes people with differing opinions at the same time. This psychiatrist said this psychiatrist said that. It's like, can you make up your mind? Depending who's on the shift. One shift is there and they see this, and the next shift says, I never saw that. It's like, it's not as perfect, like you go in and then everything is so perfectly done. I mean, doctors make misdiagnoses all the time. Sometimes they say, well, I think your problem is this, and turns out your problem ain't that at all. And then you could get a different doctor, he comes up with a different diagnosis. You know how many people go and they have some like stomach pain or something, they go to the first doctor and they're told they have IBS, and they go to the second doctor and told diverticulitis, and they go to the third doctor and they say, maybe you have Crohn's disease. They go to the fourth doctor, and then they find out they have 4th stage cancer. Thanks a lot, guys. You never did a freaking CAT scan. Maybe it would have shown that I had a big fat tumor. So you had 4 doctors who were all wrong. So who do you believe? And the psychiatrists are the same way. They have different, look at this, I just read you conclusions that, well, I said that, but now I'd say this. Well, then you didn't know then and you don't know now. So, oh my God. Let's see. That is true. Lindsay had to hold the bands tight in place. Strangling is not an easy thing, especially with the children, and drowning isn't an easy thing. Both of them, they weren't quick things. They didn't take out a gun and shoot them quickly while they were asleep. They did this very, very determined, horrible, torturous death for each one of their children. And that makes me think that they had some level of hatred for the children, that children were their problem. And eliminating it gave them great relief. So she was not exactly. So I don't know if you missed that part. You'll have to go back over it. No, it was not schizophrenia. It's a schizoaffective. It's whatever they said, but what they never said was that she was hearing voices, and that she was rambling, and that she never made any sense, and she was seeing people that weren't there. That never happened. They did not say any of that. She was just severely depressed and sort of catatonic-like. And I decided that was psychotic. I don't know how that is exactly psychotic, but I'm not real fond of a lot of psychiatric determinations, as you can probably see. I've never been happy with the DSMV. Is that what he has? 5 now. It's just 6 now. I don't like that manual, their little Bible. I think a lot of stuff is nonsense. And what's interesting is not one person ever checked out the possibility they had personality disorders. Maybe you would have noticed something is not right in that. But personality disorders can't be treated with drugs. So they don't look there. A lot of times they just don't. And, so, yeah. Oh, okay. So, but didn't they both know they'd be caught? Yes. But they didn't try to hide it. Well, that's true. They didn't try to say a crazy stranger came in with the wild hair. Some hippies came into my house. I think I was the McDonald one. Hippies came into my house and killed all the kids. And my wife too, And amazingly enough, they didn't hurt me. Yeah. No matter what you call it, they're both sick in their own way. Yes. But sickness is not the same as the illegal issue. Did you know it was wrong and did you do it anyway? That's the legal issue. You can say everybody is sick in the head. Serial killers. Do you think it's normal for people to go around and jump out of bushes and rape and murder people? Do you think pedophiles is normal? Do you think it's okay for them to, you okay, it's not okay, so that they would grab a child? So all of these murderers, they're all got something wrong in their head, called psychopathy for the most part. They should all go to the mental institution and not go to prison. We should just get rid of the prison altogether and just have them be treated. In theory, if you want to say that we're just going to turn our prison into a mental institution and they're not going to be cured, just don't let them out again. I guess you could say they could skip the whole trial thing. So yes, are they normal human beings? Healthy people? No. Obviously not healthy. People who kill their kids are not healthy. Husbands who annihilate their families are not healthy. Serial killers are not healthy. All of them are not, mass murderers are not healthy. But most of them have a personality disorder which cannot be fixed. And the last thing you want to do, and this is really important, because some countries do this, they put their murdering people into a prison with a shorter sentence, or into a psychiatric institute, and say when they're better, they can be released. But if they're psychopaths, they're very good at going along with the therapy program, saying what they need to say, and eventually they're like, oh, this person's really nice. I don't think he's a danger at all. And then they let him out and he kills somebody else because it's psychopath. So yeah, people are obviously, they're mentally off. There's no question about that. Oh, there is a good point. Thank you, Moonflower. If there was a video of her doing it, everyone would feel different. Yeah, can you imagine an actual camera in the house watching these women murder their children screaming and crying? And yeah, that would probably, people would have a lot different feeling about that. That's why people aren't, for the most part, mass murderers aren't well loved, because they see them come into the school and start shooting little children down. That usually turns people against them. Okay. Wait a second here. Having real trouble with that little thing here. Some of it's interesting to see people try to say that I don't think there's any kind of people with any mental issues. I think that's really funny. It's just like, do you purposely not hear what somebody is saying when you come and listen to their show? So this sleuth investigates. So here we go. This is the second time you said that. So you know what? I think this is where I just ban you, user. Okay, bye. I haven't banned anybody except there's one now, because twice she said the same thing, and or he said the same thing to insult me, and I said, you can't come in here and insult me. You can disagree with me, but don't insult me. You're thinking that they can't be compared, and I think it's because, and this is why I think that she was found not guilty. I think you're saying that she's guilty and she's not guilty because she sounds like she was nuts. And then again, I think I said 4 points here, 1 point here. I think because of her situation, and her visits to the hospital, and psychiatrists saying she was catatonic, all this, she sounds much more damaged than Lindsay. And that she was, because of her strange beliefs, that she could have literally believed that stuff and did it because she thought she had to do it. I get it. I do think, however, legally, she knew exactly what she was doing, and I think she was getting rid of the children because she was fed up with dealing with all of the whole thing. I personally think they had the same basic issue. I do think both of them are borderline. I think both of them chose to get rid of their children because they were overwhelmed and didn't like their lives and just wanted that stuff to end. But instead of ending themselves, they ended the kids' lives. And I think a lot of it was they were the impediment. So, I mean, theoretically, she really thought Rusty was the reason she was stuck in the house. She could have gotten rid of him and let her, and let her parents raise the kids or something. But I say that's why I think, it gets very difficult sometimes when it comes down to, especially when you're in the courtroom. Where would where nobody can hide that many children that they've murdered now. Oh, there's no place to hide them. Um, if I were a jury member, that you're asking the question how I would have voted, I would have voted guilty in both cases. I would have. Because I believe both of them planned it, both of them executed the children, and both of them knew what they were doing. And just because, and here's the other thing too, just because you have weird beliefs doesn't give you the right to kill your children. Anybody can have a weird belief and say, well, I killed them because. That's a weird belief. That's not hearing voices. It's not hallucinating. It's you have a weird belief. And if you have weird beliefs, and I say weird, not talking about the religion, but just some of the bizarre beliefs she had. I think it wasn't even the religion, it was what she developed herself because of her own borderline personality disorder. You can come up with ideas. For example, serial killers might say all women are bitches and women are whores and they deserve to die. Do they really believe that? Or is that their excuse to kill them? I don't know. But let's say they do believe that. Does that give them the right to kill women? They know darn well that they're murdering people. And somebody wrote this, and I want to read this because I thought this was really, really a good one. Let me see if I can find it. This comes from Zombrero. It was a comment I saw. The children were people. They didn't belong to her. She had no right to take their lives. Bingo. When you bear children, just because you had the children, you don't own the children. Yes, you have parental rights and all that stuff, and you should be taking care of and loving them and raising them, but they don't belong to you. They're people in their own right. She killed 5 kids who had the right to have their own lives, and she took it from them. She had 3 kids who were, what is this here? They didn't belong to her. They're not like possessions you can throw out because they just is yours. You can do whatever you want with them. We don't have a society that says you can do whatever you want to your kids. That's why social services will roll in when you're beating your kids. You can't do that. You can't hurt your children because you don't have the right to do that, and you don't have the right to kill them. So I really like that. There was somebody out. There was another really. I don't know if I can find that one. Let me check out some of your comments before I close up here. Yeah, that's when one child watches the other being killed before they're strangled to death. I can't believe that. It's horrifying. Oh, that's an interesting point. I think she did want to suicide herself and panicked. No panic while killing her kids, though. Nothing stopped her. You kill one kid, you might go, oh my God, what have I done? But if you methodically can keep going, oh, Darlie Routier, yeah. Some people think she's innocent. Yeah. You think so? I really believe she's going to be found guilty. Unfortunately, not the death penalty that she would deserve. I would be surprised, but But so GoFundMe at 1 million. Oh, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Um, yeah, that's true. Number one profession for psychopathic women is nursing. It's true. My apologies to the many awesome nurses out there. Um, yeah. By the way, I've said things like that before. People go, "No, we're not all that." No, you're not all that. Thank God, most of you are not. I've also said with serial killers, number one profession is security guard. But one of my sons was a security guard. I have actually have had like 3 relatives in security work. None of them are psychopaths, but they've worked with psychopaths. They'll go, yeah, that guy. You know, they like security guard. They if they can get armed security, they're really thrilled because they love the uniform and the gun. You take a Brian Koberger. What did he want to get into? He's into criminal justice. A lot of serial killers take criminal justice courses, and some of them apply for the police department but don't make it through the psych test. So yeah, so there's whatever that profession gives you is the reason certain people choose certain professions. So for a guy who wants power and control and to be macho, security guard when you can't make police is something like that. You can be a bouncer at a bar. Some of them are kind of psycho-like too, and you throw people out and you can push people around. Hey, nursing is a way to control. That's why you have we have quite a few nurses who kill. And anesthesiologists, that's a job where you put people to sleep, which you're actually on the borderline of life and death. You're controlling their breathing. What a thrill. And so most anesthesiologists, thank God, are great. And but you just hope you don't get the one psycho, But they've killed, some of those have killed a lot of people. So professions do draw different kinds of people. And it doesn't mean everybody in that profession is that way. The majority are not, but it does draw a certain kind of person. Uh, let's see. Oh, that's an interesting point. Point about the stomach pains. But this is interesting because I wonder that we haven't heard much about her being Munchausen syndrome by proxy. But she was like, her daughter has stomach pain. She immediately jumps to, she's got liver problems. And then there was something else. She thought one of the kids had genetic problems because of something minor. And it's like, she did exaggerate. Now, maybe she works in the nursing field, so she just easily jumps to conclusions, like the worst case scenario. But with a lot of the Munchausen syndrome by proxy people, I mean, that's the whole thing, is to, use the children as a way to get attention, which is really frightening. Um, uh, that's terrible. I'm not even going to go there, but it made me laugh. Mrs. Jim Morrison. People can read your comment, but it does make me laugh. Um, let's see. Why doesn't she plead guilty then? Which one? Oh, the question though, Loretta. Um, she's not pleading guilty because she says she didn't know what she was doing, right? So she did know. She did purposely kill her children. She knows she's guilty of that, and supposedly she feels like she should do penance. She should be tortured for what she did. However, somehow she ended up pleading not guilty. Now, I don't know. I'm not a legal person, so I don't know the truth of this. Maybe if you ever find out, let me know. It said that her family and the defense attorney made that decision for her to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. But I think she really liked where she ended up, because she seems to be thriving there. And there's it's not a bad place. I mean, for a person like her. So maybe she thinks she's doing her penance and that'll fit her mindset. And at the same time, she gets all that attention. She has no work. I mean, she doesn't have to worry about taking care of kids. And she, it's just, maybe people, and I was reading this thing where, well, in that place, they check on you every 50 minutes if you're in a room. Maybe she didn't mind that. Maybe that's cool. She's like, hey, she gets attention all the time. But if you're out, you can go out, you can sit in the television room. You say you can do arts and crafts, you can play games, you know. Now, most of us don't want to be late. Basically, it is a prison, but so we don't want to be there. But it's a hell of a lot nicer prison than being in a real prison. So somebody just put this in here. Cynthia, thank you so much. Wow, that's very generous of you. I don't know where your thing is. $50 is very generous. Thank you. I'm just beyond sick with all of this. My 20-year-old son is severely autistic and will never be able to advocate for himself after I'm gone. I have no family support, but it's a privilege for me to love an angel on earth. Oh, that's really nice, Cynthia. Yeah, and to have a mother like you, thank God, and you have a much more difficult job raising a child who has a severe issue like that. And their children apparently did not have any issues. I mean, so they had a much easier thing to do. Then Pat Brooks is back here. Thank you again for being so generous. Pat, most of her supporters are female. That is true. Not as many males. So do you think we could have a hung jury? Oh, thank you for an excellent analysis. The hung jury problem. Oh, I dread the hung jury because that happens quite often. And if you get a hung jury, then what do you get? You get another kid. You get 12 more poor people. This has to happen all over again. All over again. Just like hers was a hung jury. She was found guilty, but then that little screw up made her have a whole new trial all over again. And now if that happens, they'll have another whole trial all over again. And it'll go on and on and on. So it's horrifying to think of that. But could it be possible? Yes. And I don't know which one's worse. Because if they have a hung jury, the chances of it, again, once you get the new jury in, it'll be another hung jury or somebody will find her not guilty. And finally, they'll still end up not getting the guilty thing, I think. I just don't think it's going to go that way. And I'd like to be wrong. I don't think so. Yeah. It's exhausting. A whole legal process is so exhausting and long and expensive and unfair to just about everybody. But what it does do is give people on the internet a chance to dress up in pink shirts and, run out there and cause trouble. It's just, so Kalila says Lindsay absolutely wanted them dead and was only horrified she accidentally paralyzed herself. And I do think she was horrified. And because she didn't. Interesting is when she realized she was not dead, when she woke up from whatever, because she did code out, but that was because of people said, well, see, she coded. No, she coded because something, it's the whole system. There's something in the whole skeletal thingy. And she wakes up, what is she not saying? She should be saying, why am I alive? Why am I alive? I don't want to be alive. I'm supposed to be dead. I never heard that. All I heard about was her legs. Maybe we just didn't hear, but yeah. Oh, I wanted to mention this. Oh, thank you for saying this. I think it's premeditated, said Tricia, because she did not get Cora's medicine after the doctor's appointment. I always get the medicine after the doctor appointment. That's an interesting point, but I think what's even more interesting is, why didn't she just call Uber Eats or DoorDash? Why did her husband have to go out? Why didn't she go out? Supposedly she the claim is she was afraid to be alone with the children type thing, right? She was afraid to be alone with them. Why didn't she go get the food and the medicine? And why weren't things delivered to the house? So there were options, but she wanted to make sure her husband was gone long enough for her to commit the crime she wanted to commit, because he had the audacity to actually work from home, so it made it hard for her. Let's see. Yeah, this is true. Interesting, Rainey says how these women and others who kill their kids wait until they're alone with the kids. As you said, when others are around, they don't report voices or ask for help. And, I don't know why these voices would, and these demons and whatever else, wouldn't appear when everybody's at home. Well, they do. See, that's the thing. They will in a real case. They will, and that's why. By the way, sometimes people are calling 911 saying, "Please get out here quickly because my son is in the house and he's threatening us all with a knife. He's screaming that there are demons every place. He's trying to knife us." That's psychosis. So, I don't know about the judge. I no, I do not watch trials. So your question there. Hopefully, other people answered about whether the judge was good judge, bad judge, biased, not biased. I don't know. I can't tolerate watching trials because they're very long and take up a lot of time and they bore the hell out of me. But there are definitely people who are watching it have opinions on how the prosecution is doing, how the defense is doing, how the judge is doing. So yeah. Um, okay, but you can respectfully disagree. I do think Andrea was crazy. She doesn't even come to her own hearings to get out. Well, again, I think that's why people found her not guilty. But I don't believe she was crazy at the time she did it, unless you believe that because she had a belief system and she believed in that belief system, therefore that belief system didn't require psychosis. It just required her to believe it. And that's an argument that can be made. She doesn't want to get out, but I don't think the reason she doesn't want to get out is not because I think she just likes it there. I think she has determined that this is a better life for her. You can remember, she already accepted being in a very small place and being separated from society. She already had that prison. Now she's in a bigger prison because she's got company, she's got attention, she's got helpers, she's got, I think that's just suiting. I just think it suits her. I do. So, but I appreciate you saying respectfully disagree. And that is always okay here. You can respectfully disagree. Oh, by the way, you're talking about one thing about the murders. I did read in that book, I read about Rusty arriving home, and it was horrific to read. It was one of the saddest things I've ever read. So, and people say that the phone call, the 911 call that Patrick made was pretty horrific. So, that is true. He did do that. Now there's a question here. Patrick remarrying and still supporting Lindsay after what she did shows was and is still supportive. That is true. He did not divorce her right away. He supported her. Both husbands said they believed that their wives were that their wives were good wives, and they thought they were in psychosis. Both of them went there. Now, one of the reasons both would go there is because you don't want to feel like you didn't get the point. You also want to feel like people blame you for not. People do. They blame them for not figuring out their wives were having problems. So for them, they want to feel themselves that I couldn't have stopped it. I don't want to feel guilty about this. They were good wives, and how I didn't see this coming. That's one thing. Secondly, I think can be easier not to hate than to hate, because that's why a lot of people say you have to forgive, so that because it's for yourself and not the other person. I don't agree with that. I think you should accept, but as opposed to forgive, because I don't think it's very forgivable. But I think for a lot of people, that's a way for them to cope. And also, as far as Rusty goes, Rusty did have a religious belief that he should support his wife. He did have a very strong religious belief on that, so that he would hang longer and support her longer than maybe Patrick would. That may be part of the difference there. Did I say that? I'll give her credit for trying to kill herself. Did I say that? I might have. Sometimes I don't know what I say on these shows. Yeah, I don't have any control. Some other person is saying these things. Oh, that is true too. Andrea Yates had the presence of mind to lock up the dog during the murders. There was no question that both of the women There's no question about this, that they both premeditated it, planned it. I don't believe the whole thing about Patrick went off and then she just suddenly decided to kill the kids instantly. I don't, that I'm just thinking is absolute garbage. I believe they both premeditated it, both planned it out, both secured the situation so they could complete the murders. And the only real question comes down to is, well, they did both know what they were doing, in my opinion. The only thing I think that saves Andrea for a lot of people is I think she was like kind of out of her head in general. I think that's the only thing that saves her. And that's why I think the second jury found her not guilty. This is very true. Seeing isn't believing, because I believe something else. No, this is the same psychology as serial killers attack innocent people while no one is around to stop them. Yes, that people say, there are psychiatrists who will say serial killers cannot help themselves. Yeah, they can, because as you point out, they don't do it when they can't get away with it. They plan how to get away with it, and that's why they become serial killers. Because first of all, nobody jumps out of a bush, rapes and murders a woman, or climbs through a window and rapes and murders her, or lures her into her vehicle and rapes and murders her, or takes her to a basement and tortures her and murders her. Nobody does that just once, because that's not a mild line to cross. It's not like, okay, the date rape issue sometimes is a matter of people are extremely drunk, and who are they really totally aware the other person said no? Did the other person even say no? So could they go across that line, and it's kind of gray, and you can say, did he mean to have sex with her when she might not have been quite awake? I mean, sometimes absolutely. It's 100% no question that she was completely out of it and he took her clothes off and had sex with her. And, okay, that's just rape. That's not a gray line. That's a line. Who does that? Who does that? Psychopaths. So, a serial killer, a serial rapist, you don't cross a line. Complete stranger. There's no question. There's no alcohol involved. There aren't two people on a date even. You just decide you're going to crawl in somebody's window and rape and murder them. That's because you like to rape and murder, and you're going to do it more than once. And the reason you're careful is because you don't want to get caught on the first round, because then you can't do it again. So you can very carefully plan when you're going to do it. Some do it more often. Some only do it once in a while when their lives are going downhill, but they have a methodology of a way they know they can get away with it. They don't rape and murder women in the middle of the mall while people are walking by, because they're not crazy. They're psychopaths. Let's see what we have left here, as we should be wrapping up. It's been a long chat today. Let's see. Yeah, this is true with the Patrick thing. Even if he did remarry, he's still supporting it. Nothing to do with it. People are cruel. Yeah, we don't know anything about the guy. I don't see that anything is so bad. I would say Rusty might be a little bit more controlling because of the weird life they led, but I don't see anything in Patrick like that. So people are, oh, he does, his way, his behavior, blah blah blah. And even if he cheated on her, which I have no evidence of, murdering your children because of that is not a reason. Most people just get divorced, but he has the right to move on. He does, and maybe moving on is the only way he can stand living. Try to erase this stuff from his head, to try to see a future, to try to see anything pretty and nice anymore. And also, men don't like to be alone, and they like sex. So hey, it's men tend to move on quicker than females. They just do. And so, yeah, I think that it's some of this stuff is just sick, kind of sick way of treating a parent of murdered children. Let's flipping down here. That's terrible. Pick a higher window next time. Did she have? She could have gone off the roof, I guess. Yeah, I mean, This is something I want to point out. Patrick wasn't home yet. She had a vehicle. She wanted to do herself in. You just jump in that vehicle and you go down the road about 150 miles an hour and hit a tree. You can do that. I mean, you can find a building that's really tall, park at that building, go up the elevator to the roof. You're on the 10th floor. You're not going to survive. People who really want to do themselves in, they go off of cliffs. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do it. But she didn't really pick a very solid way. And a lot of times, and people also, even Andrea, just because she holds a knife to her neck doesn't mean she's really trying to do herself in. She may just be wanting no help or attention. Doesn't mean she's really doing it. So even her supposed attempts are questionable. And in the long run, she didn't even try to do herself in. So that's kind of interesting. So maybe she never intended that. Maybe she just wanted to get the hell out of the house. And supposedly Patrick said that she would like have 3 hours without the kids during the week. She did go to her parents' house, and maybe she took the kids with her. I don't know the whole situation there. And she, of course, they would be outside running around. And was it? I mean, if I think about it, when I was homeschooling my kids and my kids were little and stuff, I don't think I had that much time away from the kids. I never, as a matter of fact, since I was nursing my babies, I don't think I was probably away from my kids for 4 years. I mean, I was always with the kids. It's not like the end of the world because your kids are around. I mean, most people hang, in Western society seems to think you have to have date nights and all this kind of crap. But basically, I don't think we left a child till they were 4 years old. Now, my husband was away because he was working and come home, but I was at home with the kids. And, when he was home, it didn't mean he could watch, when he said away from the kids, he could have been in the house and she could have been outside relaxing and reading a book for an hour. It doesn't mean she didn't have any time alone. So a lot of this stuff, yeah, I don't really know about, but maybe she was overwhelmed, and the way to get away from everything was to sort of crash, and then they take her away from everything, and then she wouldn't have to deal with these things. So maybe she liked medication. I don't know. So it says a lot of things we don't really absolutely know. Oh, you did hear the transcript. I read the transcript. I never got to read it. I don't know why. And it deeply bothered me. I think she'll be convicted. She let him stay with her, knowing dang well her babies were dying. Oh, that was the other creepy thing. Yeah. I mean, maybe if she said, I tried to kill myself. Why didn't she say, I strangled the kids that are in the basement? Yeah. So he stayed with her because I mean, the kids were alone in the house, you could say, but I mean, if you see your wife out there lying outside on the ground in agony, and and you're like, what the heck happened? You're going to stay with her. I mean, you're not going to immediately run away and leave her there. So, yeah. Well, that's interesting. I also think Cora's tummy ache stemmed from her mom's behavior. She told preschool teacher that she missed her mommy. And I did hear that or read that someplace. And I don't know why. Did she miss her mommy because she was in school and she just was, just saying the normal thing kids say? Or was her mother not that present when she was at home for some reason, or off running? I don't know. I don't know, quite what that means. So, well, the lawyer's wife has posted a photo of Lindsay with her and her defense lawyer, all smiles, on social media. Is he defending her for publicity? Well, that is a big thing for attorneys. I mean, sometimes you're doing it because it's huge publicity. As a matter of fact, that attorney has been out there with everybody gathered around him. He's been doing photo op after photo op. So yeah, he's getting his day in the sun for sure. But he did say he was retirement age, but he doesn't want to retire because he likes working. So maybe he's just a ham, and he's a defense lawyer. So what can you say? Thank you here. That's my thoughts. I'm glad Patrick got money and remarried. Let him. He's a total victim. Just, yeah. Let him have a life. Thank you, Tricia. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah. Oh, but I don't think Lindsay Clancy is going to ever try to do anything to herself again. Which I mean, theoretically, she could feel so bad she just didn't want to live, but I don't see any evidence of that either. Correct. Um, oh yeah. Yeah. Defense's star witness is a paid gun. He worked for the defense of the Casey Anthony trial. That's all I need to know. And basically, there's a lot of money in being a witness for the defense. There's not a lot of money in being a witness for the prosecution. I have been very sad to see some professionals who I really respected from the books I've read from them, forensic pathologists and things like that. And I'm like, you wrote in your book this, but you're on the stand saying the opposite. And then I find how much money they made. Oh my God. I mean, we're talking about just for their statements, maybe tens of thousands of dollars just for being the hired gun. Yeah. So it's this whole system is, see, one of the problems what you have is if you had a professional jury system with people who studied profiling, understood crime scene analysis and all that, they wouldn't be able to play those games because we would have knowledge and we would know. Because when you get two witnesses, one from the prosecution, one from the defense, and they say exact opposite, how is that possible if they're both professionals, both experts? Why are they saying opposite things, right? So somebody's not telling the truth, or you're both incompetent. Which one is it? But a professional jury has a better chance at knowing when their leg is being pulled, when they're being played, and all this kind of junk. It's a better chance. I think professional jury, we'd see shorter trials, and more reasonable trials. And people go, oh yeah, but you can bribe professional jurors. You can bribe lay jurors too, and it has happened. So I don't do collaborations with anybody, by the way. No, I don't do that. I do my own channel. I don't, it's just too much work for me, and I don't have the energy to do all these, get together with other people and do interviews and chatting thingies. This is my thing. I'm going to stick with it. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, Reddit. Let's see here. There's a lot of comments are great comments. I'm not putting them up on the screen just because I know they're great comments. Everybody who has been in there has been reading them. So, and somebody agrees with me. Yay. Lindsay is still obsessed with her looks and appearance at her own murder trial. Well, no, she looks better than Andrea did at the trial. That's true. I don't know. Would I be able to say what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. No, I think people they want to. Well, you have a choice. You can appear totally pitiful, or you can appear attractive enough for people not to. See, it gets tricky with especially with females. See, everybody picks on everything, right? So if you have makeup on, they think you're vain. If you don't have makeup on, they say, "Oh, she's a nasty looking woman. Therefore, she must have done the job because she doesn't look good." So you can't win no matter what you do in that. They usually do have, by the way, the defense attorney is going to tell them what they should look like. They will tell them how to dress, how to use their hair. So they're being coached. So a lot of times it isn't even the defendant's choice. They're being told what to do. Let's see. Oh, that part. That's yes. This is a good point. Call girl says, Lindsay Clancy is pampered in the courtroom, all dolled up, holding hands with Reddington ladies from the gallery, coming up to comfort her when she fake cries, eats candies, biased judge. You're seeing a very negative view. But she is the wheelchair is very helpful to her in the sense that people feel very sorry for her because she's paralyzed. At least that's what we believe to be true. And so the pity thing, they're really pushing the pity thing as much as they can inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom, especially the psychosis thing. Postpartum depression, women are being ignored. Postpartum psychosis is worse than everybody thinks. Tons of women are having this problem. They're pushing this because they can get all the pity to surround this whole case, and it gives her a better chance of of not being found guilty. So that's a defense strategy again, because it's a lay jury. If we're a professional jury, they wouldn't pay attention to the noise. Oh, that. Are we talking about the who was well, I thought that was a psychiatrist that let her use his personal phone. Is this the okay, I'm trying to remember now. Is this the guy who spent all this hours and hours and hours with her, and is like her supporter now, as opposed to just being a forensic psychologist? He's supposed to be just a forensic psychologist looking at this very objectively, but he's become her bestie. Yeah, I wouldn't trust that crap. So yeah. um, Julia says, agree, Loretta. Common sense. I don't know what Loretta said. What did Loretta say? And Colleen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. This educational channel will keep on going in spite of AI, because you're all helping so much. Yeah, one of the things we also run into. Rusty said Andrea was asking about the kids when she came to reality, but that's coming from him, and he's not a trustworthy source. We have to be careful about all the sources, because just like when family says, "Oh, my child was my daughter, my son was the most wonderful mother. They never did this and never did that," and then you find out they did a lot of things, but they don't want to present them in a bad light because they're supporting them or they're trying to save them or whatever. I've heard people say things like, well, she would never get into a car with somebody that she didn't know. Well, no, because she was going with her pimp to go to go to the location where she was going to be with the John. But you say, what? Things like that. Or no, he's not using drugs when he is using drugs. So the problem is you can't trust family a lot of times. And when you're doing investigations, one of the problems investigators has is they ask things like, has your daughter ever run away from home before? Parents, absolutely not. She's never done this before. You got to go find her. Well, it turns out she's run away 3 times before, and she's always down at the drug house doing something. Yep. And so the police have to try to figure out what's true and what's not true when they're being lied to. And and then after a person is, let's say they've died, then also they become more perfect after death. And now if they're trying to save their daughters, or they're trying to, the husbands are feeling guilty and they just, so you're going to get, not what you hear is not necessarily true. And even if this comes from the husband or the mother, it doesn't mean it's true. So you have to be very careful of that. And, we're never going to absolutely know, because we also don't know if they talk to the attorney and the attorney is telling them what they can and cannot say. So. Oh, I like that intrusive thought. Intrusive thoughts. Send money to Pat. Send money to Pat. That's funny. Oh my God. Give your driving home and your intrusive thoughts tell you to get a pizza there. And it's unfortunately, that is so freaking true. I'm driving home and I'm like, I'm going to stick with this diet. I'm going to go home and have a salad. But then some force pushes my car into the 7-Eleven parking lot. And some force makes me get out and go in and get 2 pieces of pizza. And then I got some taquitos to go with it and a cupcake. So, whose fault is who? Am I in control of myself, or am I not? Yeah. So um, that's an interesting. I like that statement. Tim says, hi, Tim. Luther said, you can't keep a bird from flying overhead, but you can keep them from making a nest in your hair. I love that. That's brilliant. That's absolutely true. Things happen to us in life that we can't always do something about. But once they're nearby and we have some choices to make, we don't have to go along with certain things that are not healthy for us, not healthy for our children, whatever. So yeah, you get to make choices, and people want to take away agency from people. And if we do that at a certain point, nobody should be held responsible for anything, because none of us can help anything that we do. That's a scary thought. Uh, oh, that's an interesting one. All right. Thank you. Okay. Also, for people who don't understand, hearing voices doesn't mean they control you and make you do terrible things. Reason why crazy people can be so loud and erratic is because they keep saying no, and that is true. And I remember one day I was on a bus, and this was before, let's see, before the days of, what it was like, trying to think about this. Anyway, there's a woman ahead of me on the bus, and she was talking, and she was like, "Oh, absolutely, I think we should do that." No, no, maybe another time. Are you going to wear the leather jacket? She was having this conversation. And then as I walked by her, I realized she didn't have a phone or an earpiece. But she was obviously talking to somebody who wasn't there. But she wasn't being violent. She's just, if you ever been on because I don't know how many people ride buses, but you get a lot of crazy people on buses. And so they'll be talking to themselves. They'll be acting out. They'll be saying all kinds of weird crap. Because they probably are, they do have some kind of serious psychiatric problem. Um, yeah, a lot of people have intrusive thoughts but don't act on it. Again, intrusive thoughts are just your thoughts. They're not fake, they're just thoughts. And maybe they're thoughts that you're trying to not, you're not in other words, you're sad and you think to yourself, I want to go have some alcohol, but I've been an alcoholic, so I'm not going to drink. That's an intrusive thought, I guess, but you can say no to it. And, sometimes it's a fight. And sometimes after you've had that thought a bunch of times, people say, screw it, and they go drink. And they go back to being an alcoholic again. They fall off the wagon. People fall off the wagon all the time because that thought that they have has probably shown up a bunch of times, and they've tried to ignore it, but one day they're really depressed. It's a bad day, and they go, oh, screw it. Well, a lot of us say screw it a lot, and then wish we didn't. Intrusive thought, eat an entire birthday cake. That could be. Um, OCD is real, though. Okay. Ruminating thoughts, different from intrusive. Okay. Yeah, sometimes people who are OCD get very excessive on things. That's for sure. It's hard to leave the house when you're OCD because you got to check the burners 500 times over and make sure the iron isn't still on. And then when you leave the house, you think, oh my God, did I really check that properly? And you have to go back and do it again. Some people have OCD like that. I do check the stove, but I only leave once. So, but yeah. So, well, let's not discuss all the religious stuff. Because everybody has different opinions on everything, different religions and different non-religions, whatever, and people believe what they believe. No. Oh, thank you, Mincy, for refreshments after the show. Should I have an intrusive thought? I'll use that to support the channel. Thank you very much. That's awesome. Oh, aren't you nice? It's nice to hear something nice because I get people with intrusive thoughts like Pat Brown is an old crone and she should quit, and you stay in your lane. You're an old hag. It's just lovely stuff. And people wonder how. By the way, how do you deal with this? It's one of the things, the old thing, if you get out of the kitchen if you can't handle it. And when I first started television, we didn't have the internet the same way, so. But we did have some email, and I would do television. Eventually, I get an email, and somebody say something mean. And I remember the first time I got it was kind of shocking to me, and but it was just like, wow. My sister was looking over, going, "Oh my God!" And then she's like, "How can you stand it?" Well, it's like, well, I wasn't used to it yet, but after a while, you get so many of them, and now with X and TikTok and Facebook, and people even make a whole website. One was patbrownisafraud.com. That was one of my favorites. After a while, you just have to laugh about it all, and because otherwise you couldn't survive, So just let it go, let it go. But it's always nice to hear something pleasant. It is. Tarot readers are blaming the husband. Ugh, good Lord Almighty. Let's see. Okay, no more discussion of Uh, religion, please. Let that go. Let's see. I think I'm going to slide down to the bottom because I think I should wrap up because it's now past 3 hours. Oh, well, let me go check this out, though. Thank you, Danny. Both Andrea and Russell wanted to have as many children as possible. Rusty, yeah. Andrea was of sound mind when they both decided on the fifth baby. She was also the sound mind when they had the first baby, the second baby, the third baby. Takes two to tango thing. And admittedly, she may have believed in whatever thing said that, you should have as many children as God has you have. And as I said, I had a friend who had 11. All the kids grew up great too. She homeschooled them all. Go figure. She had a great attitude. It's like, wow. But you know what? But then I've had atheist friends who had a bunch of kids too, just because they wanted to have a bunch of kids. So it isn't always a religious thing either. It's just some people want a big family. They maybe grew up in a big family. They love big families. Maybe they didn't have any brothers and sisters and they want their kid to have brothers and sisters, whatever. But it does take two. And we're not in a country, at least in the US for the most part, where women are sold into marriage and then essentially have no choice whatsoever. But did she just go along with her husband because he wanted that? Or was she behind a lot of it? And here's something else I want to talk about. Speaking of the husband thing. So a lot of people will always think the husband made all the decisions in a situation like this. And if people looked at me when I was married and homeschooling my kids, so I stayed home with the kids, I homeschooled the kids, had a home birth in there. People could have said to me, well, look at her. Her husband is like really controlling and forcing her to do all these things. No, the person who made the big decisions in the family was always me. I picked the house. I picked the house. I chose home birth. I chose to nurse. I chose homeschooling. I was the one. Why did I do this? Well, because I'm the smart one. No. It's because my husband was just not one of those people that he didn't want to, I remember one time we talked about private school. And I said, well, we really don't have the money for private school. And he says, oh, well, I think we could find one. I said, well, do you want to go look for one that we think we can afford? But then he didn't bother us. So he wasn't pushing these things. And he was kind of wishy-washy and stuff. So being kind of forceful myself, I made the decision because I got tired of waiting. So people could look at that and think, oh my God, her husband forced her to have the kids. Her husband forced her to homeschool. No. So I don't know how much Andrea really was making choices too, or making choices, maybe actually telling him she wanted that. Maybe she wanted to be the perfect mother. So he's like, we don't have to have that many kids, or we could slow down. She's like, no, we can do it. Maybe, we don't know. So just saying, we don't know. Let's see. Okay, see, people can disagree. I read some of these things, I'm like, okay. And by the way, I've never stated that I was 100% correct on anything. I might say that I believe this, or from my experience that, or from my professional viewpoint of being in these certain situations, this is what I'm offering. And I have no belief that I'm always right. Not, at least not all the time. So, um, let's see. Okay, I'm trying to whip again towards the bottom here, just because I see all these comments and I know I can't comment on all of them. And again, we're running so late, but everybody, some are still here, so I wanted to see what else. So I can get to the bottom. Yeah, see if I see anything here. Well, I think everybody's been, except for a few people have been pretty cool in the chat room, considering I don't have a moderator. Thank you very much. I think that's amazing. And oh, shoot, what is this one here? Oh, did you just, Molly? Thank you very much. Molly just sent me a $20 super sticker. Thank you, Molly. I don't know where I'm trying to. Yeah, it's really. People don't understand how difficult the chat room is, because you got the teeny little arrow pointing down, and it's a lot of times it gets stuck. So people are like, oh, you just can't manage the, this, the electronic stuff. I'm like, no, you don't know how hard it is. It is what it is. Sometimes it's not easy. And I'm just glad that we didn't have internet freezing. We had that one time a couple weeks ago, and it hasn't happened in years. And I was like shocked. I was like, what the heck? We have business internet here. Why is it doing that? I'm plugged in too. And it's not even Wi-Fi. But things happen sometimes, and nothing you can do about it. So wow, boy, there's so many comments. It's crazy. Goodness gracious, look at this. I wish I could see every one of them, but yeah, I might just have to stop. 7:15. We've been on here since 4 o'clock. Wow. Usually mine are an hour and a half to 2 hours. So usually not quite this long, but it's such a fascinating topic, and I don't think we're going to, absolute solving this is very difficult. And this is why I think these two cases are going to probably be around and discussed forever and ever and ever. Oh, that's what I forgot to mention. See, now I remembered it. In when she was in nursing school, supposedly, I was like, I know she had to hear about Lindsay Clancy. I mean, sorry, about Andrea Yates when she was in nursing school, because she's dealing with labor and delivery and babies. And supposedly a friend said that they actually have this in the curriculum, learning about Andrea Yates, and she cried, oh, how could anybody do that to their babies? Just take it for what you will. Interesting, eh? So I knew it. It's like, she has to know about this case. So, I cannot. No, I don't think there is a bottom to this thing. Wow. Oh my God. I just looked at this, and I'm at 6:30 in the comments, and it's 7:16. So it's 45 minutes more. I'm gonna have to stop. 45 minutes more of comments that are just, I can't even scroll to get them. So I want to say this: if you all gave me a super thanks that I did not respond to, I do apologize, and I thank you so much for supporting an educational channel. I just never saw it, and I can't find it. So but I do appreciate it tremendously, because that really does help. Say AI has gotten to be problematic. Lost tremendous amount of views, and just everything is down for a lot of smaller channels like myself. So but I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to try to keep being here as long as I can. So I'm going to stop, and I want to thank you again for coming. And this was a pretty peaceful, completely open live, and a very, very emotional subject. So I'm shocked that it went as well as it did. Oh, I got a comment on this one. Just Tassel says, when the children were gone, she never heard voices again. Well, she didn't hear their voices again either, did she? And maybe that's the whole point, because their voices were probably, or were keeping both of them, overwhelmed. So anyway, I will stop with that again. And thank you for being here again. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And if you'd also like to be in the chat room, that is normally a patron-only chat. Please click the link below. It's $5 a month. I only have one level, and you can come to 2 live shows a week. And I talk about many, many different cases. And usually I don't dwell on one case. So usually I find analyzing evidence the most interesting part of cases. So I usually do a different case every week, but occasionally I do speak on the case more than one time, like this one. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. You're all fantastic, and I will see some of you at the hangout during the week, my patrons. Bye-bye.